Chapter 648. Yan Padian and Yan Qingyi stopped their conversation at the same time, looked at Yan Luyun and asked, "What's the matter?" "Grandfather, I want to see Tang Zheng today. He asked me to send his regards to his aunt," Yan Luyun said. Yan Padian nodded his head in gratification. "You are getting closer and closer to him, this is indeed a good thing. Grandfather, from the looks of it, he seems to be very familiar with aunt?" Yan Luyun asked suspiciously. Yan Potion's thick white eyebrows furrowed, but Yan Qingyi took the lead and said without batting an eyelid, "I met him a while ago and once again witnessed his extraordinariness." Seeing that his aunt did not say anything, Yan Luyun did not ask further and said, "Tonight we met Ji Wuxiang and his attitude towards Tang Zheng was extremely strange. He attached great importance to him, and even asserted that the development potential of our great families was not as good as Tang Zheng's. In the future he would surpass us and even the structure of this world would change because of him." To be honest, as someone who was a few years older than Tang Zheng, Yan Luyun was very shocked by these words, and even envied Tang Zheng's achievements. All these years, he had been cautious and conscientious in order to win the title of the head of the 4 young masters of the capital. However, Tang Zheng's rocket-like rise made his achievements pale in comparison. Ji Wuxiang. Yan Potion's eyelids twitched, his expression became especially serious and he asked, "Did he really say that?" Grandson heard it with his own ears. "It's absolutely true." Yan Luyun nodded firmly. Yan Padian pondered for a long time, then sighed faintly and said, "Since he said so, I'm afraid it will really become a reality." Yan Qingyi and Yan Luyun were both shocked, they never thought that the old man would be so certain of Ji Wuxiang. "Grandpa, is this true?" Yan Luyun asked in disbelief. Yan Padian nodded his head. Since it came from his mouth, then it should be close to the truth. In terms of looking at people and predicting the situation, no one can surpass him. The two of them sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time. This kind of evaluation was too high, especially when it came from Yan Potion's mouth. There was no doubt about it. "Father, is Ji Wuxiang really worthy of such an evaluation? Who is he?" Yan Qingyi couldn't help but ask. "His origins are too mysterious. Even the great clans don't know much about him, but one thing is for sure. His strength is definitely not simple and his background is not small. Because of this, he was like a fish in water in the capital. No one dared to find trouble with him. For a person who cannot be understood, no one wants to be his enemy." Yan Padian sighed with emotion. Yan Luyun was slightly disappointed to see that the old master was unable to tell Ji Wuxiang's background. He asked, "Then what exactly did he mean by those words?" Yan Padian shook his head. "I can't guess it for the time being, but without a doubt, there is no such thing as an airtight wall in this world. These words will definitely reach the ears of others." Oh, that's right. That's why it's hard to say whether this is good or bad for Tang Zheng. Praise him to death. The silent Yan Qingyi's eyes suddenly lit up as she said in a powerful and resonant voice. "Kill by flattery?" Yan Padian and Yan Luyun cried out in alarm. "You're saying that Ji Wuxiang deliberately said that, and then made Tang Zheng's halo even more dazzling so as to kill him?" None of them had thought of this. "Since Ji Wuxiang is as mysterious and far-sighted as you said, Father, then his words and actions must have a deeper meaning. I really can't figure out his specific thoughts, so I thought of this with a flash of inspiration," Yan Qingyi explained. Yan Luyun was puzzled. Would Ji Wuxiang really have such an intention? What good would it do him to kill Tang Zheng? A person wouldn't do something that would be thankless, right? The few of them looked at each other speechlessly, unable to guess the reason behind it. This Ji Wuxiang was shrouded in layers of mysteries, shrouded in clouds and mist, making it impossible for people to see through him. Then what should we do? For the time being, we still can't figure out his specific intentions. Let's wait and see and remind Tang Zheng when necessary. In addition, our family's established policy will not change, but we must quickly close the distance between us and Tang Zheng. This is your aunt's gain from this trip. The world is really going to change and Tang Zheng is the most important factor. Whether or not our Yan clan can soar again depends on this child," Yan Padian said with a resounding voice. He did not retreat because of Ji Wuxiang's unknown intentions, but instead took a step closer. Obviously, what Yan Qingyi saw and heard in front of the Tree of Life had contributed to his determination. Yan Luyun glanced at his aunt, guessing that this must be related to the secret discussion between the two of them in the past few days. "I heard that Tang Zheng's company has already started, with Mu Hongyan at the helm, and our Yan family is cooperating with his company in all aspects, pushing his company into the fast track of development. Since Ji Wuxiang has predicted his future achievements with certainty, then we will push Tang Zheng forward. In the end, we still hope to see the day when he stands at the top of the world, and all of our Yan family's investments will bear fruit. Yan Padian added. Tang Zheng did not know that those words had such a huge impact on him. Of course, this was a good influence and a bad influence followed suit. Song Yu looked at the few people in front of him with an ashen face. These were all hedonistic sons of rich families who had been insufferably arrogant in the past, and were a group of people who followed his lead. These people had become so battered and exhausted. It was as if he had been ruthlessly slapped in the face, causing him to feel a burning pain. Young Master Song, you have to uphold justice for us. That Tang Zheng is too arrogant, he doesn't put us in his eyes at all, and even more so, he doesn't put you in his eyes, young Master Song. Everyone complained with snot and tears streaming down their faces. So many of you are still not a match for him. You still have the face to complain in front of me? Song Yu roared in disappointment. The few of them trembled in fear and said, Ji Wuxiang is also helping him. We can't do anything about it. We have the heart but we don't have the strength. Ji Wuxiang. Yes, he publicly asserted that Tang Zheng would surpass several great families in the future, and that he alone would break the world's structure. Song Yu's brows tightened, his expression fluctuating. The few of them looked at him with fear and trepidation. Someone said indignantly, he's talking nonsense. Who does that kid think he is? Breaking the world's structure? Isn't he afraid of biting his tongue when talking big? There's young Master Song in this world. That kid has no place to strut around. The others hurriedly agreed and nodded in agreement. Shut up. Song Yu said coldly. In the past, Song Yu was a cultured and refined person who never revealed his inner world. However, the more he interacted with Tang Zheng, the more he gradually lost control of his temper. He could no longer restrain it. In particular, Qin Lao's death had seriously agitated him. Since he was young, Qin Lao had been by his side and could be considered his closest bodyguard. The relationship between the old and the young was quite good. However, because of a momentary mistake, he sent Qin Lao to ordinary balance, but he didn't expect that Qin Lao would die at the hands of Tang Zheng. Therefore he hated Tang Zheng to the bone. He wanted nothing more than to drink his blood and eat his flesh. However, he knew that Tang Zheng's power was already established, and he also had the backing of the National Security Bureau. It wouldn't be easy for him to touch Tang Zheng. Qin Lao's death could only be temporarily put aside, but he never forgot this hatred in his heart. This time, the few rich playboys were taught a lesson, but it didn't make him lose his wolf. However, after hearing Ji Wuxiang's words, he couldn't stay calm anymore. Ji Wuxiang was too mysterious. His assertion was very likely to be true. If Tang Zheng was really as successful and powerful as he said, then his revenge would be even more unrealistic. He absolutely couldn't allow this to happen. Seeing Song Yu lose his temper, the few people closed their mouths and looked at him in silence. Ji Wuxiang, do you really think so highly of him? Song Yu seemed to be talking to himself, his eyes filled with an ominous glint. Young Master Song, I think you're just bragging. How could that brat be so powerful? Someone couldn't help but interject. Song Yu coldly smiled and disdainfully said, What do you know? You guys only know how to eat, drink, play and chase after female stars. What else can you do? The few people were speechless. Wasn't this a true portrayal of their daily lives? You guys can go back. Song Yu impatiently waved his hand. None of these people could help him at a critical moment or give him advice. He couldn't help but miss Qin Lao. If he was still here, he would definitely analyze the pros and cons for him. Once he thought of Qin Lao, his heart couldn't help but ache. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath to calm himself down. Seeing the few people leave, his eyes once again filled with an ominous glint. He gritted his teeth and said, Tang Zheng, how could I let you do as you wish? Ji Wuxiang, although you think highly of him, I want you to know that there are too many variables in this world. I want to make Tang Zheng completely disappear from this world. He finally made up his mind to get rid of Tang Zheng before he reached the peak. But he clearly wasn't Tang Zheng's opponent. Even with the help of the Song family, he still might not be able to win. After all, the Yan family had always been protecting him and he also had the National Security Bureau behind him. You have too many protective talismans on you. Then I will find someone to break them. I heard that the dragon group suffered a big loss at his hands this time. Xing Feng must be furious. In the past, Xing Feng always wanted to work more closely with the Song family. This time he will follow his wishes and work together to completely eliminate Tang Zheng. No one knew that Ji Wuxiang's words would lead to so many consequences. What was his intention when he said those words? Was it to kill? Or did he have other motives? Tang Jing didn't know these details at all because he was told to quickly go to the airport at dawn. What was he going to do at the airport? He was confused. Su Yingtian said with certainty that he had to hurry or he wouldn't let him go. Tang Jing had no choice but to say goodbye to Linger. He rushed to the airport early in the morning, but the scene in front of him made him flabbergasted. Outside the airport, several news trucks and many cameras were waiting solemnly. Damn, which country's leader is coming? What a big fuss. Tang Jing shook his head and searched for Su Yingtian in the crowd. Chapter 649. Tang Jing was shocked. Why were they making such a big scene? Just as he was about to strike back, he realized that these were all reporters, so he quickly retreated. But the reporters had trained a pair of fast legs, and in the blink of an eye, they had surrounded Tang Jing from all directions, leaving no gaps. Tang Jing, what's the progress of your relationship with Princess Anne? They shoved their cameras in front of Tang Jing and bombarded him with questions. What's the progress of your relationship with Princess Anne? Will you marry Princess Anne in the future, or will you go to Sweden to get married? Was it your suggestion that Princess Anne came all the way to Wuxia to study? Are you here to pick her up now? The questions were getting more and more outrageous. Tang Jing's head was about to explode. How could these reporters have such a good imagination? It would be a waste if they didn't write novels. However, he finally figured out why there was such a big scene today. It turned out that Princess Anne was here. He thought that he would have to wait for a while. He didn't expect it to be so fast. Su Yingtian was really a thief. He didn't tell him the truth and just tricked him into coming to the airport. Su Yingtian probably also knew that if he told him the truth, he wouldn't be so obedient and come to the airport. But now that he was trapped by the reporters, he had a headache. Looking at the pairs of eyes that were burning with the flames of gossip, Tang Jing really wanted to jump up and fly over their heads. But then, it would definitely be more lively and it would be recorded by those cameras. Seeing that he didn't say a word, the reporters didn't give up. They surrounded him even more tightly and kept asking him about his relationship with Princess Anne. Tang Jing had no choice but to say loudly, "Everyone listen to me. I have nothing to do with Princess Anne. What you know is fake. It's all a misunderstanding." How can it be a misunderstanding? Princess Anne came to China to study and she even went to the same school as you. Isn't that the best proof? The reporters all had a look of, "Don't treat me like a child," and refuted one after another. Tang Jing was at a loss for words, but he didn't want to be misunderstood any further. He explained, "What I said is true. I only know Princess Anne." Seeing that he was trying to distance himself from Princess Anne again and again, the reporters immediately imagined many scenarios. Finally, someone's eyes lit up as if he had discovered a new continent. He immediately lowered his head and recorded a line of words in his notebook. The mysterious knight and Princess Anne feared that their relationship would change, so the mysterious knight deliberately distanced himself from her. When the others saw this, they reacted one after another and immediately thought of a headline with a similar title. Princess Anne had a change of heart as soon as she came to Wuxia. The mysterious knight actually had a change of heart. This was definitely explosive news, enough to attract the attention of the whole world. Crack, crack. The sound of shutters kept ringing. The reporters recorded Tang Jing's expression at the moment and wanted to convey it to all the readers. The image of this modern chinchimi was bound to be deeply rooted in people's hearts and become the public enemy of many men and even women. A princess was actually abandoned by him. This kind of man was really too abominable. Tang Jing didn't know that his image had suffered such a huge change. Seeing that there was finally a crack among the reporters, he took the opportunity to slip through and escape. Tang Jing couldn't wait to leave the airport immediately, but before he could go far, he was stopped by Su Yingtian. He crossed his arms and looked at Tang Jing with a faint smile. Tang Jing frowned and said angrily, "Director Su, you are too deceptive. You didn't tell me the reason, so I was surrounded by these people and almost couldn't escape." Su Yingtian smiled and said, "This is a good thing that many people dream of. You are lucky. Go and ask how many people want to be the focus of the interview, but they don't have the opportunity. I will give this opportunity to you. You go." "Haha, I want to, but I don't have that fate." "Ah, this is your fate. You can't escape, so slowly enjoy it." Su Yingtian patted Tang Jing's shoulder and laughed. Tang Jing rolled his eyes and waved his fist and said, "I don't believe in fate. I believe that fate is in my own hands and I can control it." Su Yingtian smiled non-committally and said, "Don't run away at the last minute. I called you here for a proper reason." "What business?" Protecting Princess Anne. Isn't this the most important thing? She is a princess. Does she still need me to protect her? Who knows how many bodyguards are protecting her in the dark? Why would she need me to do it? Tang Jing shook his head. He obviously thought that this was nonsense. Didn't I tell you a few days ago? After Princess Anne comes to China, you will be in charge of her security. She doesn't have bodyguards? Of course she does, but she didn't bring them this time. Since Princess Anne is here to study, she will be traveling lightly. So she is the only one who came to China. Tang Jing almost fainted. A princess actually came to Wuxia by herself. This was too ridiculous. Didn't she know that there were many bad people in this world? But thinking about how she dared to sail alone on the vast sea, it was not difficult to understand her courage and behavior. But this made things difficult for Tang Jing. She wanted to travel lightly so she couldn't have someone follow her every day. So most of the time she needed Tang Jing to protect her. Protecting a princess, wasn't this nonsense? He had so many things to do every day. He had to practice martial arts and deal with other things. He didn't have enough time. How could he have the energy to protect the princess? Seeing Tang Jing's gloomy mood, Su Yingtian explained, "This is something that many people yearn for even in their dreams, so don't try to stop me. Whoever wants it can take it by themselves. I really don't want it. Tang Jing, you promised me. As a man, how can you go back on your words?" Su Yingtian used his trump card. "Damn, you didn't make it clear last time, okay? Where did you tell me that I am the only one who will protect her? I thought that I was just a support and would occasionally lend a hand, but now you are pushing everything to me." Tang Jing angrily retorted. Su Yingtian looked resentful. Knowing that he was in the wrong, he quickly smiled and said, "This is a special case. Please bear with it." Tang Jing also knew that although he had wasted so much time, he still had to accept this task. He could only sigh and said, "You tricked me. I will remember this. It won't be so easy in the future." Su Yingtian didn't mind and laughed. Passengers came out of the airport exit one after another. Reporters heard the news and immediately swarmed over to block the exit. Pairs of fiery eyes swept through the crowd. Suddenly, a tall Western face came into view. It was completely different from the other passengers. Whether it was appearance or temperament, it was much higher than the others. She wore light makeup and was dressed casually. Canvas shoes, jeans, a simple jacket and a suitcase. Although it was a simple outfit, it was completely the style of a fashionista. Moreover, it gave off a handsome feeling. Princess Anne. There was no doubt that this was the simple Princess Anne. She didn't even wear a pair of sunglasses to cover half of her face like other celebrities. She completely exposed her beautiful face to everyone's eyes. There was no arrogance on her face. Her face was calm and her pair of lively eyes searched the crowd. Suddenly, her eyes fixed on a figure in the distance. The corner of her mouth couldn't help but reveal a charming smile. The cameras immediately recorded this smile. This smile was completely in line with Wuxia's aesthetic. Tang Jing couldn't hide it all. Su Yingtian took a step back and slipped to the side like a passerby. His work was confidential. It was not suitable for him to be exposed under the spotlight. Tang Jing helplessly became the focus of the spotlight. His impatient expression was vividly recorded. Many people were even more certain of their previous thoughts. A man with such an expression towards Princess Anne must be a heartless man. The previous rumors weren't false. When Princess Anne came to China for a few days, Tang Jing disappeared. At that time, there were already rumors of him being a heartless man. Today's events directly confirmed this matter. Princess Anne excitedly waved at Tang Jing and walked towards him with her suitcase. Tang Jing had no choice but to walk towards her. However, the reporters wouldn't let them go so easily. They blocked Princess Anne's path and started to ask her questions. Princess Anne's Wuxia was very fluent and experienced. She answered the reporters smoothly. When asked about her relationship with Tang Jing, she smiled mysteriously but didn't say anything. Although there was no accurate sentence, it left people with unlimited imagination. In short, in the reporter's pen, Princess Anne was definitely the incarnation of a goddess. She was the polar opposite of Tang Jing. Move aside. What's there to watch? Seeing that the reporters were endless, Tang Jing impatiently squeezed through. This time, the reporters didn't have a good impression of Tang Jing. They all glared at him. However, Tang Jing acted as if he didn't see them. He directly squeezed to Princess Anne's side, took her suitcase and asked, "Can we go now?" Whether it was her expression or her tone, she was impatient. It showed the demeanor of a chin shimmy. Princess Anne smiled sweetly and said, "Yes." Tang Jing conveniently picked up her suitcase and said, "Then let's go. You're about to cause a traffic jam." Tang Jing squeezed forward but was blocked by the reporters. It was so tight that he couldn't do anything. "Everyone please make way, is that okay?" "Thank you." Princess Anne saw the situation and immediately asked gently, "What?" Like the tide, the crowd retreated to the sides with humble smiles on their faces. Tang Jing really wanted to curse. No one cared about him at all. Princess Anne's simple words were treated like an imperial edict. The gap between men and women was too big. Chapter 650. What made Tang Jing dumbfounded was something absolutely unexpected. Princess Anne actually did not have a place to stay in China. This time, she came to study privately and deliberately refused the official reception request. Su Yingtian did not tell Tang Jing about this situation. "Which hotel do you want to go to? I'll take you there." Tang Jing touched his forehead and said with a headache. Princess Anne blinked her big lively eyes and said, "I don't want to stay in a hotel. I'm tired of staying in all the hotels in the world. It's not interesting at all. Since I came to Wuxia, of course I have to adapt to the life of ordinary people." "What do you mean by ordinary people's life?" Tang Jing gradually had an ominous premonition. Sure enough, Princess Anne looked at Tang Jing affectionately and said, "Of course it's to live in an ordinary family. You also have a place to stay in Beijing. I'll live in your house." "No." Tang Jing refused without thinking. He even saw the strange look in the taxi driver's eyes as if to say this kid is a fool. He actually refused this kind of luck. Princess Anne's identity was indeed very tempting, even to Tang Jing, it was self-evident. But he already had enough romantic debts. If he provoked another princess, who knows how much trouble it would be. He didn't want to live under the spotlight all day like a white mouse without any secrets to speak of. After all, he really hid too many secrets that could not be revealed to outsiders. Princess Anne was not discouraged. She blinked her big watery eyes and said pitifully, "Can't I stay for a while?" At this moment, Princess Anne's appearance was so charming, especially that lovely and moving eyes, it made people completely unable to say half a word of rejection. The driver glanced from the rearview mirror, his hands were in a panic, and he almost knocked the taxi into a nearby tree. The charm of the princess was indeed unstoppable. Even if Tang Jing was experienced looking at her appearance, he could not bear to refuse. "I live on campus," Tang Jing said helplessly. Princess Anne bit her lip and shook her head. "No, you also have a place outside because you often don't return home at night. You won't tell me that you sleep under the bridge, right?" Obviously, she was prepared to investigate and directly expose Tang Jing's lies. Tang Jing was speechless. He couldn't help but feel angry. "Your identity is too special. It's not good for you to live with me." Princess Anne stubbornly shook her head. Instead, she moved her hips towards Tang Jing. The two of them faced each other, and they could almost hear each other's breathing. "My identity is nothing. Your identity is the truly special one." Princess Anne had always believed that Tang Jing was an immortal. Since he was an immortal, then her identity as a princess seemed insignificant. Therefore, she had never put on airs in front of Tang Jing. "Living with you is something I've always dreamed of." Princess Anne stared at Tang Jing with burning eyes. She was like a little girl who saw her idol for a long time. Cough cough. Tang Jing almost choked on his saliva. This sentence had too many meanings. Living with him, didn't that mean living together? Living together with a princess. This seemed to be very tempting. Cough cough. He coughed dryly and hurriedly discarded these charming thoughts. Although this was a very tempting thing, the risks involved were not small. What would Fang Shishir think of him? There was also Yi Dingdang. It would be strange if they did not make a scene. Moreover, the media would swarm him. They would not give up until they dug up all the details of him. He scratched his head. This was really a vexing problem. "Tang Jing, can I live in your house?" And stared at Tang Jing with watery eyes. Her eyes were filled with expectation. "Young man, a man should be straightforward. Why are you being so wishy-washy? The girl has already said this much. If you still refuse, I will doubt if you are a man. Moreover, this is a foreign friend. Hey, it is my duty to bring glory to the country." The driver seemed to be unable to continue watching this situation. He could not help but speak up for the injustice. "You don't understand the situation." Tang Jing rolled his eyes. "How could I not understand the situation? Back in the day, your uncle also fought his way to the top. I have plenty of experience. Hurry up and say yes." The driver was obviously unaware of Princess Annie's true identity, but he still sounded very reasonable. I can only let you stay for a few days. Since you like the life of an ordinary person in the capital so much, then go find a new house in 2 days. Tang Jing could only take a step back and compromise. An's charm was too great. If the stalemate continued, perhaps the driver would not be able to bear it and would directly leave Tang Jing on the road. Yay! When An heard this, her eyes lit up. She cheered and hugged Tang Jing. Her body was tightly pressed against his. The chauffeur smiled knowingly. Tang Jing indeed felt like he was on fire and ice. He had to admit that An's body was very good. Her front and back were perky. Moreover, because of her long-term training, her limbs were well proportioned. There were also some small muscles that were filled with the beauty of strength. With such a great body lying on top of him, it was enough to create a fatal temptation. It made Tang Jing's heartbeat uncontrollably quicken, and completely did not realize that she had such a great charm. She just naturally revealed her excitement. After a while, she finally let go and moved her body to give Tang Jing enough space. From time to time, she would point at the scenery outside the window and ask Tang Jing questions. Tang Jing chatted with her casually. He could not help but remember that he purposely disappeared some time ago. After this meeting, and did not mention a word about it. It was as if it had never happened. He did not know if she did it on purpose or if she had really forgotten. The more she was like this, the more Tang Jing felt a little guilty. She was a dignified princess, and she had repeatedly expressed her goodwill, but he avoided her like the plague as if she was a god of plague. This was indeed a bit of a blow. Looking at the excited An, Tang Jing's heart moved. Actually, she was also a simple girl. She was not arrogant. Instead, she was more approachable than most so-called goddesses. Forget it. I'll let her stay first. Then I'll find a place for her. I hope no one else finds out. Otherwise, the news of me living with Princess An would be too big. The taxi stopped at the entrance of a residential area not far from Yenqing University. The two of them got off together and walked into the residential area. Along the way they attracted a lot of attention. Although it was not uncommon to see foreigners in a big city like Yenqing, there was nothing strange about it. However, An's temperament and appearance were completely different from the average foreigner. She could not help but attract attention. Tang Jing said in a low voice, "Let's go." Seeing that she did not have much of a reaction, he instead observed the situation in the residential area with interest. Tang Jing anxiously grabbed her hand and did not allow her to resist. In fact, she did not resist at all. She strode into the residential area. Bang! The door was heavily slammed shut. Tang Jing finally breathed a sigh of relief, and looked like she had returned to her own home. She looked around Tang Jing's residential area with interest. Whoosh! A white figure jumped out of the house and jumped on Tang Jing's shoulder in the blink of an eye. A pair of small eyes rolled around and looked at the uninvited guest suspiciously, and recognized Xiao Bai at a glance. She covered her mouth with her hand and could not help but exclaim, "Wow, it's him." At that time, Xiao Bai was still fresh in her memory. She had also seen how powerful Xiao Bai was in the South Sea Dragon Palace. It was like a mythical beast in the legends, which made her very curious. Xiao Bai squeaked twice. Apparently, it did not have much feelings for this beauty. It lay on Tang Jing's shoulder and licked its toes. "Shangshin, you're back." Gui Qiansui slowly climbed out and greeted respectfully. Princess An also recognized Gui Qiansui. At that time it was an enemy, but now it was subdued by Tang Jing, and looked at Tang Jing with eyes full of worship. Tang Jing was simply a godlike figure. No, he was even more powerful than the mythical immortals in the Western world. Tang Jing stole a glance at Gui Qiansui. His eyes lit up and exclaimed, "Your cultivation has improved so fast?" Gui Qiansui practiced the Heavenly Spirit 36 Absolutes. His cultivation had increased greatly, and the aura he exuded was completely different. That was why Tang Jing noticed this, but he couldn't help but be shocked. Gui Qiansui was overjoyed and said, "All of this is the effect of Shangshin's cultivation method. Thank you for your help. As long as I master the Heavenly Spirit 36 Absolutes, I will be able to transform into a human." "Really? That's great." Tang Jing was still vexed that he had so many demon beasts, and there was no way to take them away. But now the situation has changed. As long as he had the Heavenly Spirit 36 Absolutes, the demon beasts would be able to transform into a human once they mastered it. At that time, no matter where Tang Jing went, they would be able to protect him and serve him. It was simply like having a few more powerful helpers and they could follow him at any time. All of this is Shangshin's reward. Gui Qiansui will definitely remember it. Gui Qiansui said excitedly. Listening to the conversation between the two, Princess An felt like she was shrouded in fog. but she also felt that it was very novel. She sincerely sighed and said, "Tang Jing, you are really more mysterious and powerful than I thought." Tang Jing smiled and said, "You flatter me. I hope to know more about you in the future. I am very interested in the culture of your Wuxia," and said enthusiastically, "Then you should pay more attention in class. I don't need to know anything about you. I will prepare a room for you." "Thank you." Annie smiled faintly and did not refuse. The cohabitation life here had just begun, but the entertainment circle and the international community had already exploded. The matter of Tang Zheng and An had gone viral on the internet. There were countless shocking headlines, most of which were protesting and angry at Tang Zheng's behavior. What did he do to win Princess Anne's favor? Princess Anne could be said to be throwing herself at him, chasing him so far to see him. Of course, the statement about Tang Zheng, the modern Chinchimi, was also very popular. It attracted the attention of all parties and caused various social effects. Chapter 651. The Swedish Royal Family. The king looked at the beautiful scenery outside the window with a sad face. He was in a terrible mood. Princess Anne was his youngest daughter and his most beloved pearl. Her growth experience was quite different from that of ordinary royal princesses. Since she was young, she had been nurtured according to her interests and wishes. Therefore, her personality was very independent. Otherwise, she would not have sailed across the ocean alone at such a young age. After visiting Wuxia, she took the initiative to ask to study abroad. This really surprised the king, but he did not delve into the reason. Over the years, Wuxia's national strength had risen strongly, far surpassing many of the old powers in the West, and even contending with the Atlantic Empire. Of course, Sweden was also looking forward to a good relationship with Wuxia, so they agreed to Anne's request. However, the king did not expect Annie to do all this for the sake of that mysterious night. Speaking of this mysterious night, it really surprised the past. When the mysterious night was revealed, he thought that the other party and Anne would not have any more interactions. But he did not expect that the two of them would meet unexpectedly in Wuxia. If he had known this, he would not have agreed to Anne's visit to Wuxia. Now his subordinates have already reported to him in detail what happened in Wuxia's capital city, focusing on the mysterious knight Tang Zheng. But he did not think that Tang Zheng really had anything to do with Anne. Of course, the king did not sit idly by for the island nation's bad behavior of assassinating Anne. He had already stopped several important cooperation with the island nation. This time, the media once again released such eye-catching news, and even said that Princess Anne had been abandoned. This was not only damaging to the dignity of the royal family, but also a great harm to his daughter. As the king of a country and the father of a daughter, he could no longer ignore it. He is a cultivator of Wuxia, but so what? If you dare to treat my daughter like this, I will teach you a lesson. The king clenched his teeth and thought silently. Tang Zheng's identity as a cultivator was not a secret. For a country's ruler, it was not difficult to investigate this point. However, he didn't know much about the identity of cultivators. He only knew that they were very powerful people. But no matter how powerful they were, could they contend against an entire country? The king easily came to a negative answer, and having seen the apple of his eye being pushed into the limelight again and again, the king decided to act. Tang Zheng and Princess Anne's cohabitation life was not peaceful. The two of them went downstairs to buy some daily necessities which attracted a lot of attention along the way. If he went in and out of this house with her every day, Tang Zheng would undoubtedly become the center of attention, and the neighbors would come to watch. I have to find a way to change the current situation. Tang Zheng silently made up his mind. Creak. The bathroom door opened and a gust of fragrant wind blew in. This was not the smell of any perfume but a natural light fragrance. Body fragrance. Tang Zheng immediately made a judgment and looked in the direction of the fragrance. Oh. His breathing immediately became rapid and his heartbeat increased a bit. He saw a beautiful woman standing in front of him, wrapped in a bath towel. Her white shoulders and slender legs were completely exposed to the air. There were still a few water droplets left on her skin, as if they would roll down her rosy white skin at any time. Princess Anne did not notice Tang Zheng's strange expression. She continued to wipe her hair with the towel, and her breasts almost burst the towel on her body. I heard that she is only 18 years old. How come her body is so good? Her movements are so big, won't the towel fall off? Tang Zheng mischievously speculated. As soon as this thought appeared, other thoughts came like a tide. What kind of scenery is inside the towel? It really makes people want to find out. He took a deep breath and suppressed the restless flames in his heart. Unexpectedly, and walked towards him while drying her hair and said lazily, "I sat on the plane for too long. I'm really tired. I feel much better after taking a bath." After saying that, she stretched her waist and stretched her slender arms. The scenery in front of her chest became even more magnificent. Then she sat down next to Tang Jing. Her slender legs were tightly pressed together, and the towel wrapped around her buttocks and thighs. The scenery was faintly discernible. The flames that Tang Jing had just suppressed jumped up again. No, this is too much of a test. He was a young man in his 20s and his fire was already very strong. This kind of stimulation over and over again was simply driving him crazy. "Since you are tired, then go to sleep," Tang Jing said absent-mindedly. "I am still jet-lagged. I'm very energetic now. Chat with me," and said in high spirits. "What is there to talk about?" Tang Jing said perfunctorily, and shook her head and said, "There is a lot to talk about. For example, I only found out that you are a cultivator after going back. Are cultivators the legendary immortals? No. But you are so powerful. In my heart you are like an immortal." And held her chin with both hands and stared at Tang Jing with sparkling eyes. Tang Jing was speechless. If he was as powerful as an immortal, then wouldn't he be invincible? Although this girl was a princess, her eyes were not very good. Even with his strength, she still thought that he was an immortal. She was really ignorant. Tang Jing did not have the habit of pretending in front of a beauty. He directly said, "You flatter me. I am just an ordinary person. I am just a little more powerful than the average person." "Is that so? But I don't think so," and moved her body a little closer to Tang Jing. A fragrant wind blew in his face. Tang Jing's heart swayed. With a whoosh, the flame in his heart was ignited. "Are you kidding me? How can I be so easily aroused tonight?" Tang Jing was puzzled. Princess and was beautiful, but Tang Jing was not a virgin. Logically speaking, he should not be unable to control the desire in his heart. But her little action almost made Tang Jing lose control. There must be a problem somewhere. "You don't look too good. What's wrong?" Princess Anne asked while reaching out her hand to touch his forehead. Whoosh. Suddenly, the flame in his heart flew up and his breathing became hurried. "Oh no, the pure yang energy is acting up." Tang Jing finally realized what the problem was. It turned out that the pure yang energy was causing trouble. His pure yang energy has been quiet for a long time. Although he has not been close to women recently, his body has not changed in the slightest. But Anne's appearance obviously made the pure yang energy surge. Especially in the dead of night, a man and a woman alone in a room made him almost lose control. But in the end, the wolf did not let him do anything stupid. He stood up and said, "I'm going to bed. Good night." With that, he rushed into the bedroom. He took a few deep breaths and found that the pure yang energy did not stop. Instead, it became more and more intense and showed signs of breaking through his body. "Can't you stop for a moment? It makes me look like a beast." He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Obviously, the pure yang energy could not understand his words. It was running amok in his meridians. After a while, he seemed to be boiling. "No, I can't let it develop so unscrupulously. Otherwise, I will really explode and die tonight." In the middle of the night, there was no one to calm him down. In the capital, Wu went somewhere to practice. Lu Qingmei went on a business trip. Only Yi Dingdang was left. But she and Yi Dingdang had not developed to that point. Did he have to rush to the Ye family in the middle of the night and say, "Dingdang, let's go to bed"? It would be strange if he was not treated as a madman. Moreover, he would lose face. How would he face Yi Dingdang in the future? "This time I will grit my teeth and endure." He closed his eyes and operated the ancient clear heaven scroll. His true chi flowed little by little in his meridians. Since he started practicing the ancient clear heaven scroll, he had already memorized this ancient book. The ancient clear heaven scroll has more than 1,000 words. It is not like ordinary cultivation techniques that are divided into levels. It needs to be practiced step by step. Instead, it needs to be practiced throughout the entire cultivation technique. True chi revolves according to the ancient book. It is the same as practicing the ancient clear heaven scroll once. True chi revolves once and the true chi will increase by a little. Therefore, the ancient clear heaven scroll will be practiced step by step. Naturally, one's skill will improve. But this is also a big weakness of the ancient clear heaven scroll. It is too gradual. It needs to revolve the true chi again and again, accumulating it little by little. In a short period of time, it is impossible to rapidly increase the true chi. Therefore, it is impossible to suddenly increase one's skill. Tang Jing has long discovered this point, but has not had an effective solution. So for the time being, he threw it to the back of his mind and cultivated bit by bit. But this has an advantage. At any time he can silently operate the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll. At any time, True Qi can automatically revolve and increase his skill. As for the Dragon God arts, it is extremely difficult to get started. After getting started, each realm has a corresponding cultivation technique. There is no need to practice the entire cultivation technique. If this kind of cultivation technique is coincidental, it will soar like a volcanic eruption, greatly increasing one's skill. Compared to the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll, the Dragon God arts cannot be practiced at any time. One must calm down and carefully understand the profound meaning of each realm. Then, one can cultivate according to it. Only in this way can one improve. During this period of time, Tang Jing would silently cultivate the Dragon God arts in the dead of night. After all, there are too many unknown treasures hidden in the Langya Pavilion. He also wants to go to the third floor to see what kind of treasures are hidden. But obviously he has only cultivated to the second realm of the Dragon God arts. There is no sign of it soaring. The true Qi of the ancient Clear Heaven Scroll did not suppress the pure Yang energy. Instead, it was affected by the pure Yang energy. The true Qi also became hot and restless. The two sides complemented each other. His body was almost burning. Squeak squeak. Xiaobai jumped in front of him and stared at him with its black eyes. Tang Jing heard the movement and opened his eyes to look at Xiaobai. He said, "Xiaobai, I can't control my pure Yang energy. Do you have a way?" Xiaobai directly jumped in front of Tang Jing's palm, opened its small mouth and bit his finger. With a fierce force, blood flowed out and flowed into his mouth. It really works. Chapter 652. Xiaobai looked at Tang Jing in panic, screaming at his blood. Tang Jing was surprised and asked, "Xiaobai, what's wrong?" Xiaobai quickly shook his head as if he was afraid of his blood. "You don't like my blood?" Tang Jing was puzzled. Xiaobai nodded and screamed at his finger. Tang Jing was really puzzled about the changes in his blood. In the past, Xiaobai had absorbed his blood and there was no difference. Why was he so afraid this time? Just now, the pure Yang energy had found a vent and a part of it had been absorbed. His body had calmed down a lot. He continued to circulate his energy to appease the pure Yang energy, wandering on the edge of eruption. The next day, Tang Jing opened his eyes. He was exhausted. The dark circles under his eyes were dark and big. After a night of torment, the pure Yang energy was finally appeased by him. But he also realized that something was wrong. Tian Chanzi predicted that his pure Yang energy would finally erupt at the age of 20, causing him to explode and die. This year he was 19 years old. He was getting closer and closer to the date of death. Moreover, his cultivation was getting higher and higher. The accumulation of pure Yang energy over time had also greatly increased. When there were women by his side, he could still absorb pure Yin energy to reconcile. But now there were no women by his side. He was in an extremely dangerous state. In the past, he could still absorb pure Yin energy by getting close to other girls. Now he could do the same. However, absorbing pure Yin energy like that was like throwing a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. It couldn't balance out the increasing amount of pure Yang energy. He now wanted to reconcile the pure Yang energy. There was only one way, but this method was not so easy to implement. He shook his head and threw away this messy thought. He walked out of the bedroom and found that Anne had also woken up, and looked over and covered her mouth in surprise. "What's wrong with you?" His tired look was really terrible. It was a world of difference from yesterday. Tang Jing tiredly waved his hand and said, "I'm fine." "Really?" And trotted over and asked with concern, "Do you need to go to the hospital?" "I'm really fine. I just didn't sleep well." "Oh," and heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. "I slept very well last night. Your house really does help me sleep better." In fact, this was the so-called sense of security. With Tang Jing by her side, she would have an indescribable sense of security, as if no one in the world could hurt her, and she could relax to the extreme. For someone of her status, this state was extremely precious. Therefore, in just one night, she had already fallen in love with Tang Jing's house. Tang Jing didn't know what she was thinking. Otherwise, he would have regretted it. After tidying up and washing up, the two of them went downstairs. Tang Jing had to go to school, and had to report to school, so it was on the way. The school wasn't far, so the two of them walked there. On the way they bought fried dough sticks, steamed buns, soy milk and other breakfast, and ate with relish and exclaimed that it was delicious. For ordinary people, breakfast couldn't be any simpler, but in her mouth, it became a supreme delicacy. Tang Jing was speechless. The number of people turning their heads to look at them was very high. When they arrived at school, the number of people turning their heads to look at them reached a peak. The students of Yenching University had a vivid memory of Princess Anne. Ordinary people couldn't recognize her, but these students quickly recognized her. They exclaimed and pointed at her. Especially when they saw Tang Jing beside her, there was no longer any doubt about her identity. Princess Anne really came to Yenching University. Not long ago, the news said that Princess Anne would come to China for an exchange, but they didn't expect that she would choose Yenching University. The students immediately felt honored. At this moment, they were even more convinced of yesterday's gossip. Princess Anne really came to Wuxia to chase the mysterious knight Tang Jing. Moreover, she specially chose Yenching University. Her painstaking efforts were so obvious that even the heavens were touched. Many boys looked at Tang Jing with envy and jealousy. Why did he have such good luck and fate? If they had this opportunity, even if their lives were shortened by 10 years, they wouldn't have lived in vain. Tang Jing felt the complicated and strange gazes coming from all directions. He said, "I'll go to the classroom first. Goodbye." Hey, wait a minute. Seeing that he was about to leave, Princess Anne grabbed his hand. Her soft palm felt great to the touch. Swish, swish, swish. In an instant, countless pairs of murderous eyes looked over. Everyone stared at this scene without blinking. Tang Jing was actually holding hands with Anne. That was the hand of a princess. How many lifetimes did he have to cultivate to have this blessing? Tang Jing's heart couldn't help but tremble. Just like yesterday, his heart was exceptionally weak. Anne's careless little action would ignite his body. He didn't want the pure young energy that he had suppressed with great difficulty last night to explode like this. Thus, he quickly broke free from her hand. *CK. Looking at his impatient and disgusted look, someone couldn't help but burst out. What was wrong with this kid? She was a princess. A princess took the initiative to hold hands, yet he was so disgusted. Some people were restless. They really wanted to rush up and strangle him. "I don't know where the school's office building is. Take me there," and said. Just take me there. It won't delay your class." Anne's tone was a bit coquettish. It really made people unable to reject her. "Okay, let's go." Tang Jing compromised. He quickly walked to the school's office building. Along the way, the students all looked over. After sending Anne to the school's office with great difficulty, Tang Jing flew away under her reluctant gaze. Not long after arriving at the classroom, the members of Team 502 came. They surrounded Tang Jing and vividly talked about the gossip between him and Princess Anne. Yesterday's big news was read word for word. Princess Anne actually came to Yenching University for an exchange study. Even a fool could tell that she came for Tang Jing. Sinosaurus hugged Tang Jing's shoulder. His loud voice almost tore down the classroom. "Lao-san, no matter what, you have to treat us this time. That's a princess. I can't see where your charm lies. Why are there so many beauties chasing after you? Don't misunderstand. I really have nothing to do with her." Tang Jing bitterly smiled. Lao-san, you have nothing to do with her now, but that might not be the case in the future. Lao-san, am I right? Zhou Yang agreed. Wang Shiji nodded his head solemnly and said, "Fourth bro is right. In short, this is a joyous occasion for our dorm, to have reached this level of relationship with the princess. This is equivalent to an extension of our country's foreign policy." Lao-san, you really have high standards. Sinosaurus clapped his hands and praised. "Lao-san, can you invite Princess Anne to eat with you? Last time I only caught a glimpse of her. If I can sit face to face with Princess Anne and eat with her, then I would be extremely lucky." "Yes, eat with Princess Anne." The other two hurriedly agreed. They were obviously very interested in this proposal. "This isn't too good," Tang Jing awkwardly said. "Lao-san, you can't be that bad, right? We don't have any other intentions. We just want to eat with the princess. As long as you ask, she will definitely agree." Looking at the three people's eager eyes, Tang Jing had no choice but to agree. The day's classes quickly ended. Tang Jing hadn't even gone to find Anne, but she had already taken the initiative to come to him. "Let's go home?" Anne said with a sweet smile. "Go home?" The other three people were stupefied. Their eyes became strange and thought-provoking as they stared straight at Tang Jing. "Don't let your imagination run wild." Tang Jing rolled his eyes and didn't explain further. This kind of thing would only make things worse if he explained. The three people laughed mischievously. They didn't comment, but they clearly didn't believe Tang Jing's words. They thought he had a guilty conscience. Let's eat together tonight. Tang Jing invited. Really? That's great. I love Wuxia's food the most. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Tonight I'll treat everyone to a meal. Anne said in high spirits. Your Highness, the princess is treating us. We are really lucky. When the other three heard this, they were overjoyed. The three people were just about to walk out of the school when several beautiful figures walked over from the distance. The one walking in front was Yi Dingdang. The expressions of the four girls were clearly not good, especially Yi Dingdang. Her face was like frost as she stared at Anne with an unkind expression. Yesterday they had already noticed the news of Princess and Tang Jing. And this morning the news had spread like wildfire. Tang Jing and Anne had come to school together and were even holding hands. Their behavior was incomparably intimate, no different from a couple. Everyone knew about the relationship between Tang Jing and Yi Dingdang. They all felt that it was unfair for her. Yi Dingdang's heart was also extremely pained. Of course she knew that Tang Jing's luck with women was very good, but she never would have thought that this time he would provoke a princess. She wasn't afraid of Anne's identity as a princess, but after all Anne's fame was too great. She was also too beautiful, so people couldn't help but feel apprehensive. It even gave birth to feelings of fear and worry. As a girl, she was very clear about how easy it was for a beauty to chase after a man. Especially when this was a princess. This kind of identity was simply a fatal temptation to men. It would make men feel a strong sense of conquest. Seeing Anne and Tang Jing talking and laughing from afar, Yi Dingdang felt as if her heart had been ruthlessly stabbed by a bayonet. Her face became somewhat pale. The two sides stopped half a meter apart and looked at each other closely. The girls carefully examined Princess Anne, as if they wanted to find a flaw in her body. But after a while they found that all of this was futile. At least in terms of appearance, Princess Anne was enough to kill many so-called goddesses. Her appearance was simply impeccable and there wasn't even a single scar. Her skin was smooth and elastic, and the luster was very well proportioned. It was completely envied by women. Yi Dingdang looked at Anne with mixed feelings. Then her eyes turned and stared at Tang Jing. Her eyes became more and more complicated. Chapter 653. Dingdang, you're here. Tang Jing greeted warmly. Yi Dingdang wanted to say something but stopped, looking at Tang Jing with hidden bitterness. The atmosphere was a little awkward as the air seemed to be filled with an invisible killing intent. When Sinosaurus and the others saw the situation, they wanted to make a joke out of it. However, Li Fangfei and the others glared at them fiercely. Princess Anne asked naturally, "Are these your friends? While all of them are beauties, why don't we have a meal together?" Princess Anne was a smart person. The moment she saw Yi Dingdang's reaction, she guessed most of it. The other party was treating her as a love rival. However, she did not care about that. That was because she had absolute confidence in herself. As for her feelings towards Tang Jing, she subconsciously glanced at Tang Jing and her lips curled into a charming smile. Actually, she herself could not explain her feelings towards Tang Jing. She only felt that he was especially mysterious and she felt a sense of security around him. As for the rest, she could not be bothered. Since young, she had always followed her instincts. At this moment, her instincts were telling her that she should stay by Tang Jing's side. Therefore, she naturally did as she was told. Hearing her invitation, the few girls' expressions became even more complicated. The aura that Anne displayed was completely superior to the few of them. This was something that had been accumulated since young. It was not something that the few girls could compete against. Yi Dingdang did not retreat. Instead, she took a step forward and said, "Sure, thank you." Since the other party had issued an invitation, if she were to back out, wouldn't that mean that she was afraid of her? Since young, Yi Dingdang had never been afraid of anyone. If she met a mountain, she would cross it. If she met an ocean, she would swim over it. All in all, the difficulties of the outside world would not make her back out. Instead, it would stimulate her competitiveness. However, everything seemed to be a little different today. Seeing that Yi Dingdang agreed, the other three girls also stayed. They stood behind Yi Dingdang and became her strongest backing. The group walked out of the campus. Tang Jing, Yi Dingdang, and Anne took the lead while the other girls and boys were a little behind them. Li Fangfei glared fiercely at the three boys and asked sternly, "Do you know that this is betrayal? How could you not inform us of such important information? It's not like you don't know the relationship between Dingdang and Tang Jing. How can you face Dingdang like this?" The three of them lowered their heads and remained silent. Don't think that I don't know. The boys saw that she was a princess and was beautiful, so they were reluctant to report it to us. They even secretly wanted to have a meal with her. Tell me honestly, do they have any improper thoughts? In the face of the three fierce beauties, the three men were speechless. They had truly experienced how terrifying it was when the beauties flipped out. If you're not saying anything, it means that you're admitting it. The three of them exchanged glances and hurriedly raised their heads, shaking their heads in denial. No, we're definitely not admitting it or having any improper thoughts. Princess Anne is having an affair with old third. What has that got to do with us? She's really having an affair with Tang Zheng? The three beauties' faces froze up. They had been guessing all this while. But now that it was confirmed by Tang Zheng's good brothers, the credibility of it rose sharply. The three of them looked at one another. Knowing that they had spilled the beans, they hurriedly covered their mouths. Since you've already said it, you can't take it back even if you cover your mouth. The beauties glared at the three of them fiercely and mocked. Old third, we've let you down. Sinosaurus's face was sullen as he mumbled softly. I'll give you guys a chance to redeem yourselves. Later on, act according to the situation. You must definitely cheer for our ding-dang. You must not lose to that Princess Anne. Li Fangfei said sternly. She's a princess. What's the use of us cheering for her? Why do you have so many excuses? The reason why the three beauties wanted to borrow the aura of the three men was because they did not have any confidence. If it were any other girls, they would definitely not be so nervous and lacking in confidence. From this, it could be seen just how much pressure Princess Anne gave off. Tang Zheng, Yi Dingdang, and Anne were all silent. They would occasionally glance at Tang Zheng before quickly shifting their gazes away. This silence caused Tang Zheng to feel a little stifled. Finally, he could not hold it in any longer and broke the silence. What a coincidence today. Yi Dingdang and Anne looked over at the same time. Yi Dingdang said bitterly, that's right. What a coincidence. If we hadn't come looking for you, were you prepared to keep this from me? Tang Zheng really wanted to slap himself. What a coincidence. How was this resolving the conflict? Instead, it was escalating the flames of war. His expression did not change as he feigned ignorance. I'm not hiding anything from you. You're not? Do you really think I'm an idiot? Yi Dingdang originally wanted to fight for it. She did not want to lose to Tang Zheng. But he actually said that he was not hiding anything from her. This sentence deeply hurt her. The pain in his eyes became even more intense. Although she did not see Tang Zheng in person in the past 2 days, the internet and newspapers were all over the place. Tang Zheng's photos were forcefully stuffed into her mind, especially the photo of him and Anne. It broke her heart even more. At this moment, seeing Tang Zheng's clean denial, her heart felt like it had been ruthlessly stabbed with a knife. She had the urge to cry. She held it in. She had always been a strong girl. But the previous events were still vivid in her mind. It was as if it happened yesterday. That night, because of Princess Anne, the two of them had a little friction. Because of this, their feelings for each other went even further. He kissed her. She was intoxicated by this passionate kiss. Her heart completely lost control. She joked that if something really happened between him and Anne, she would kill him. She was so relaxed and confident at that time. Because she believed that nothing would really happen between Tang Zheng and Anne. They were like shooting stars. They only had a moment of intersection in the sky and then continued on their original trajectory. But she never thought that all of this was her beautiful, extravagant hope. It was completely shattered so quickly. She was like a joke, especially that calm confidence she had at the beginning. She was so laughable that even she wanted to laugh at herself ruthlessly. But she could not laugh. She wanted to cry. She originally did not want to admit defeat, but Tang Zheng's reaction in this short period of time made her thoughts waver. Tang Zheng saw too many complicated emotions in her eyes. His heart became heavier. He tried to grab her hand, but she mercilessly broke free. Ding Dang, listen to my explanation. Tang Zheng said. You have nothing to explain. I don't want to listen to your explanation. Yi Ding Dang coldly lost her temper and said. She was too disappointed. She was originally an unyielding girl. She chose to turn a blind eye to the matter between Tang Zheng and Fang Shishir because Fang Shishir was a step ahead of her. She had no choice but to accept this situation, and was someone who came later. Moreover, she mysteriously appeared out of nowhere and was as fast as lightning. The speed of her development with Tang Zheng was stupefying. It really surpassed the speed of her and Tang Zheng's development. She and Tang Zheng had known each other for a long time, but the speed of their development could not be considered fast. Suddenly, a woman appeared and surpassed her speed. This sense of defeat enveloped her and almost suffocated her. She chose to ignore Tang Zheng's explanation. She gradually began to believe some of the words that had been passed down for a long time. If a man is reliable, even pigs can climb trees. Men were the best at glib tongues. If she listened to his explanation, he would definitely weave an explanation that would convince her. She was a bit afraid of this explanation. She was afraid that if she believed it, there would be more explanations in the future. At that time, should she choose to believe or doubt? She didn't know. That would drive her crazy. But she was not in a hurry to leave. Her last bit of pride stopped her from running away. Facing Princess Anne, she had to maintain her last bit of pride. Tang Jing was speechless. He looked at Yi Dingdang helplessly, but she turned her head and did not look at him. Princess Anne naturally noticed the strange atmosphere and interjected, "Let's go to that restaurant from last time. I think it's very good." When she had visited China, Tang Jing had taken her to Li Hongqing's private restaurant. It seemed that she had already fallen in love with it. Yi Dingdang did not express her opinion, and Tang Jing agreed bitterly. But there was still a certain distance to the private restaurant. They took 3 cars. Tang Jing and the other 2 sat in one car, and the 2 beautiful women sat in the back. The driver's soul was almost stolen, and he almost had a traffic accident. But the atmosphere in the car was really strange to the extreme. Tang Jing wanted to say nothing, but he couldn't stand Anne's repeated questions. He could only introduce the various scenery outside to her. Yi Dingdang looked on coldly, like a passerby who had nothing to do with her. Li Hongqing warmly received the group of people. Nowadays, Tang Jing chose this place to entertain his friends most of the time. It seemed to have become his special restaurant. Li Hongqing was still so mature and charming. She accompanied them all the way. Since Princess Anne came to eat here, her business had gone up a level. This was not to say that her business was not good before. The private restaurant's business was excellent in the past, and guests came in an endless stream. But now, the level of these guests had been greatly improved, which allowed her to make friends with more powerful people. This would be a great boost to the couple's career in the capital. All this was thanks to Tang Jing, so she paid special attention to Tang Jing and did not mind his identity as a cultivator like other people. On this point, the couple had completely reached an agreement and firmly stood on Tang Jing's side. This decision was even a little crazy. Many competitors were waiting to see how they would be implicated by Tang Jing in the future. All their previous efforts would be wasted and they would plummet. The atmosphere at the table was still strange and full of danger. Li Hongqing also found the subtlety and said a few witty words from time to time, trying to adjust the atmosphere. But all of this was in vain. Yi Dingdang ate without saying a word, but she did not taste the food. She could only use this method to slightly suppress the feeling in her heart. Li Fangfei and the other 2 could not stand it anymore. Previously, they wanted to cooperate with each other, and with the help of Sinosaurus and the other 2, they could fight against Princess Anne and get back Yi Dingdang's face. But Yi Dingdang actually acted as if it had nothing to do with her. This caused them to be at a loss, but they all understood that things had really gotten out of hand. After interacting with Yi Dingdang for more than a semester, they gradually understood her character. She was usually carefree, as if she did not care about anything. But she had a bottom line in her heart. If she touched this point, it would cause a reaction like a nuclear explosion. Chapter 654. Li Fangfei and the other 2 immediately started to make things difficult for Tang Jing. Obviously, in their hearts, such a fickle man was the most despicable. Tang Jing, your actions this time have seriously hurt our Dingdang. Don't you think you're a bastard? Without a doubt, these words did not have any intention of holding back. Tang Jing revealed an awkward expression. The 3 of them did not give up as they looked at Sinosaurus and the rest meaningfully and said, "You guys are also men. Don't you think Tang Jing is in the wrong?" The 3 of them looked around angrily and did not say anything. "Have you guys become mutes?" The 3 beauties were enraged. Sinosaurus and the rest looked at each other and said, "There must be a misunderstanding. Old 3 is not the kind of person you're talking about." Along the way they were stuck between their girlfriends and brothers. At this moment they finally chose to stand on Tang Jing's side. The other party did not expect that the 3 of them would suddenly betray him. They were furious and glared at them fiercely, as though they wanted to tear them into pieces. 3 Tell me, explain it clearly. Wang Shiji advised earnestly. Tang Jing also wanted to explain. Since they wanted to listen, he would let them. Seeing this, Li Fangfei and the rest said hatefully, "All right, then we'll listen to what explanation you can give. Let me tell you, no matter how good your mouth is, don't expect us to believe you." Tang Jing gave a bitter laugh and was just about to open his mouth when he saw Yi Dingdang put down her chopsticks with a "pada" sound. She stood up and said, "I'm done eating, so I'll take my leave first." This action was completely unexpected. Just as Tang Jing wanted to chase after her, Yi Dingdang had already walked out of the private room. The others looked at everything in a daze, especially Li Fangfei and the other two. They did not know what Yi Dingdang was up to. Tang Jing cursed inwardly. Yi Dingdang's repeated actions were too abnormal. If this continued, the two of them would really become passers-by in the future. He would never allow that to happen. "You guys eat first, I'll go after her," Tang Jing said and ran out like the wind, leaving the others looking at each other. Princess and couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. On the streets, the night wind was very strong, and traces of coldness were blowing in their faces. It was the spring of March, but it was still very cold. Especially Yi Dingdang. She felt like she had fallen into an ice cave, and her whole body was extremely cold. She heard Tang Zhang's shouts from behind her. She really wanted to stop and wait for him, but he didn't do so in the end. The trace of pride in her heart strongly suppressed this behavior. Unknowingly, the shouts disappeared. Her expression became more and more pained and depressed. He did not chase after her. She staggered back home in a daze. Tang Jing chased for a while, and in the darkness he could vaguely see Yi Dingdang's figure. Just as he was about to speed up and chase after her, a person rushed out from the side and blocked his path. "Stop," Marshall said sternly. His voice was bone-chilling and filled with killing intent. Tang Jing frowned and said, "Don't block me, I have something to do." Marshall was indifferent. Like a wall, he stood in front of him and said, "Follow me." "Why would I follow you? I'm going to chase after Dingdang," Tang Jing said snappily. If he didn't chase after her, he would lose her. Swish. Marshall did not back down. Instead, he attacked, forcing Tang Jing to take half a step back. Tang Jing flew into a rage and roared, "What exactly are you doing?" "I told you to follow me," Marshall repeated without any trace of politeness. "I told you, I have serious matters to attend to," Tang Jing said angrily. Marshall's eyes flickered, but in the end, he seemed to have made a huge decision. He took a deep breath and said seriously, "Master and mistress are missing." "What do you mean?" Tang Jing temporarily stopped. Those two were experts of the Great Grandmaster realm. How could they go missing? "When I was on the phone with them, I was suddenly hung up for no reason. After that, I couldn't contact them anymore. Something must have happened to them." "Don't make a big fuss out of nothing. They're so powerful, how could something happen to them?" Tang Jing said disapprovingly. If the two of them were together, they would be two experts of the Great Grandmaster realm. Who could hurt them? "I have a feeling that something must have happened to them. We have to go find them," Marshall persistently advised. "If you want to go, you go. I'm not going." His relationship with the two of them was very complicated. He even wanted to avoid them and was unwilling to face them. Wuxia raised her eyebrows and glared at him. Her height, which was similar to Tang Jing's, made her aura exceptionally strong as she stared straight at him. "They are your biological parents. This is your responsibility. Could it be that you really have the heart to see something happen to them and disappear without a trace?" Marshall angrily asked. Tang Jing was speechless. After a long while he said, "This is between me and them. You have no right to interfere." "Yes, I know you hate them, but now that they are in danger, can't you put aside your prejudices?" Marshall did not give him the chance to retreat. She grabbed his hand and said, "As long as you agree to come with me to find them, I will follow you wholeheartedly. This body of mine belongs to you." Marshall knew that Tang Jing needed her body, so he directly used himself as a bargaining chip to exchange for it. Tang Jing was startled. He did not expect her to use herself as a bargaining chip, and asked earnestly, "Are they really worth it for you to do this?" Marshall nodded firmly. "I was brought up by them since I was young. Without them I would not be here today. Their position in my heart is higher than that of my parents." Looking at the eagerness and persistence in her eyes, Tang Jing knew that if he did not agree to her request, she would definitely not give up. Although he said that he did not care about the two of them, when he heard that they had disappeared, he still had a trace of worry in his heart. It was just that he did not show it. No matter how much you resent them, they are still your parents and they still care about you. Their blood flows in your body, and no matter how much you deny it, you can't change this point. You are usually willing to help a stranger, but can't you do something for your parents? Marshall angrily asked. Tang Jing was shaken. He looked in the direction that Yi Dingdang had disappeared in and said, "All right, I'll go with you." Marshall heaved a sigh of relief. If she were to investigate alone, she would not back down. However, she understood that since her master and mistress had disappeared for no reason, it meant that they had encountered a lot of trouble this time. Her strength might not be of much use. Only by going with Tang Zheng would their chances of success be much higher. I will definitely keep my promise to you. As long as I am still alive, I will be yours, Marshall said resolutely. Tang Zheng wanted to say that he did not care about this, but before he could say anything, Marshall took the lead and rushed out. Marshall found an off-road vehicle from somewhere and drove towards the east as fast as lightning. Tang Jing sat in the front passenger seat and dialed Yi Dingdong's number. He wanted to explain to her on the phone, but the phone rang once and was hung up. When he called again, the other party had already turned off his phone. Then he contacted his roommates and said that he had something to do and would leave for a few days, asking them to send Princess In home. The phone was very noisy. It was obvious that Li Fangfei and the others were very angry. Tang Zheng could only pretend that he did not hear anything. Marshall looked straight ahead and ridiculed, "Your romantic debt is endless." Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. "Aren't you one of them? Where are we going?" "To the east, out to sea." "Out to sea?" Tang Zheng was shocked. "They are not on the continent but on the sea?" "Otherwise, this continent is infiltrated by people from the Marshall Organization and Li Palace. If you are not careful, you will be discovered. Only the boundless sea is the best place to hide the monks." Tang Jing thoughtfully nodded and said, "Since we are going out to sea, then I will go home. I want to bring some helpers." He did not know what dangers he would encounter at sea. Gui Qiansui and Xiao Bai had to be brought along to deal with the possible dangers. Wu understood and turned the steering wheel, causing the car to turn into a fork in the road. Not long after, they arrived at Tang Zheng's building. "Xiao Bai, Gui Qiansui, follow me." Tang Zheng rushed into the house and shouted. The two fellows followed him out. On the off-road vehicle, Marshall secretly looked at Xiao Bai and Gui Qiansui. She was not unfamiliar with these two demon beasts and knew their strength. With such helpers, the chances of going out to sea should be much higher. The off-road vehicle was as fast as lightning as it drove out of the capital. At dawn, they had already arrived at the shore of the sea. There were many fishing boats docked at the dock. The two rented a fishing boat, and under the roaring sound of the motor, the boatman took them to the depths of the sea. Their target was a small island in the East Sea. However, there were many islands in the East Sea. As for which one it was, Marshall did not know. The boatman was not very familiar with this area. It was only because Tang Jing gave them enough rent that they went out to sea. Marshall did not move. Like a stone statue, she sat at the bow of the boat and looked to the east. The sun shone down and the waves sparkled. Her body was bathed in the radiance. There was a different kind of beauty. Tang Jing stood beside her and asked, "They did not tell us which island it was?" Marshall shook her head and said, "It's too dangerous. If this kind of news is leaked out, it could be a disaster for them. Without the sect master, what strength do the others have to fight against him?" Tang Jing asked puzzledly. "I told you before that there is an invisible hand behind all of this. This hand is colluding with the Li Palace master and has unimaginable power. Master should also be aware of this, so after leaving the Marshall sect, he directly crossed the ocean and went to that small island." Marshall explained. Tang Jing frowned. He had been thinking about who the invisible hand was, but he had no clue. To be able to control the Marshall sect and the Li Palace, these two mysterious organizations, this hand was too powerful. He had guessed that it was the Azure Dragon Palace, but there was no direct evidence. No one even knew what kind of organization the Azure Dragon Palace was and where it was located. Chapter 655. The clouds in the sky were getting thicker and thicker, and the sun could no longer be seen. A wisp of sea breeze blew from the distant sea, bringing with it the unique salty taste of the sea, which was particularly refreshing and cool. The boatman came out from the cabin, looking at the black clouds in the sky. His face suddenly became extremely ugly and shouted in panic, "Oh no, a storm is coming." Storm. This was the harvester of the sea. Anything in the face of a storm could be destroyed and sink to the bottom of the sea. This small fishing boat did not have much resistance in the face of a storm. "We must return, otherwise we will encounter a storm and be done for," the boatman said with a sad face. "No, we must continue forward." Marshall coldly refused. "Beauty, we really can't, sailing in a storm, not to mention a small boat like me, even a big boat will be in danger of capsizing at any time," the boatman said with a sad face. "I said no, since you took the money, you must send us to our destination." Wu Xinyo was comforted by her master and master's wife, How could she be willing to return? Tang Jing deeply looked at her, understood her thoughts and persuaded, Boatman, you just need to add more money, nothing will happen. Handsome, this is not a matter of money but a matter of life. Even if you have more money, it is useless if you don't have the life to spend it. The boatman said with a sigh. Marshall was indifferent, her eyes were still firm, without the slightest hesitation. Tang Jing secretly sighed, knowing that this time they could not return, otherwise Marshall would certainly fly into a rage. Immortal, with me here, this storm will not hurt us, we can safely reach our destination. Suddenly Gui Chensue's voice echoed in Tang Jing's ears. Tang Jing was overjoyed, he almost forgot about such a powerful character like Gui Chensui. Coming to the sea was equivalent to returning to his territory, there was nothing to worry about. Suddenly he became more confident. But the boatman was really running out of patience. He didn't want to sink to the bottom of the sea to feed the fish. Seeing that the two of them refused to budge, he said angrily, You have no choice but to agree. This is my boat. On the sea I have the final say. You can only listen to me. After saying that, he turned around and rushed into the cabin. Obviously he wanted to use the ship to resist. Whoosh. Wu jumped up from the deck and stood in front of the boatman, saying sternly, It's not up to you now. You two little kids still want to go against me? The boatman had dark skin and a rough build. He didn't take the two of them seriously at all. However, Wu did not give him a chance to resist and struck him in the chest. The boatman clutched his chest and fell to the deck, sucking in a breath of cold air from the pain. Stop, he is just an ordinary person. Tang Jing hurriedly stopped them, afraid that Marshall would get angry and hurt the captain. The boatman looked at the two of them in horror. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Tang Jing took out Gui Chensui from his backpack. It had already shrunk to the size of an ordinary turtle. Tang Jing nodded at him and whispered, Go, protect us and this ship. Don't worry, I promise to complete the task. Gui Chensui jumped into the sea and soon disappeared without a trace. The boatman saw him muttering to himself as he released a small turtle into the sea. He was extremely anxious and shouted, It's too late for you to release it now. This is a storm. Unless the Dragon King is kind, we will definitely die this time. I shouldn't have taken this risk for that little bit of money. I only have myself to blame for this. The boatman was in a daze. He kept muttering and his eyes became empty. He looked up at the black clouds in the sky. The black clouds pressed down on the city. The sky had completely turned into darkness. It was as if it had suddenly turned from day to night. A majestic pressure and momentum hit them in the face. It made them feel the power of nature. They couldn't help but revere the boundless ocean. Kacha. There was a flash of lightning in the sky. It cut through the black clouds as if it was going to fall from the sky directly to the bow of the ship. The rumbling sound of thunder was like the sound of war drums. It was deafening and made people's blood boil. The boatman was stunned. He shrank in the corner. His face was pale. He kept muttering, This time we are dead. Dead. Voila. The heavy rain poured down. It was as if a basin of water was poured from the sky. The world was completely occupied by the curtain of water. Waves were set off on the sea. The fishing boat swayed with the waves. It was getting more and more violent. In the distance, a huge wave was formed and swept over. All of this happened too quickly. A normal boat would have been overturned by this huge wave, not to mention a small fishing boat that was floating like duckweed. The boatman grabbed the side of the boat and looked at the approaching wave in despair. He regretted to the extreme. Tang Jing and Marshall stood at the bow of the boat. Xiao Bai also came out of the backpack and stood on Tang Jing's shoulder. He bared his teeth at the huge wave as if he was demonstrating. Marshall's face was pale. She had never set foot in the sea. She didn't expect the sea to be so ruthless. In the blink of an eye, such a big change happened. She turned her head to look at Tang Jing and asked, What do we do now? Looking at the trace of fear in her eyes, Tang Jing subconsciously grabbed her hand. She wanted to struggle but gave up the idea in an instant. Don't worry. This wave can't hurt us. It can't stop us. We will definitely reach our destination safely. Tang Jing vowed. Marshall was relieved. Fortunately, she was smart enough to get such a powerful helper. Otherwise this trip would not be so safe. Seeing him so confident, Marshall curiously asked, Do you have a way? Gui Chensui has already entered the water. He must have a way. Tang Jing shrugged and introduced. Marshall was no stranger to Gui Chensui. However, she had never seen him make a move before. This time, facing such a big storm, could he really turn the tide? Tang Jing was so determined that Marshall could not raise any objections. However, her hand unconsciously grabbed the rope. Obviously, she did not know if Tang Zheng's method would work. Tang Zheng was full of confidence. He stood at the bow of the boat with his hands behind his back. Looking at the huge wave, he could clearly feel the terrifying power contained within it. In front of nature, human strength was too small. Even if he was a cultivator, he was no exception. Perhaps, this was the luck that the five-clawed golden dragon spoke of. When a small world's luck reached its end and was on the verge of destruction, all kinds of natural disasters would occur. The collision of luck in the past was one of them. If a large-scale earthquake and tsunami occurred in the world would be destroyed. This was the power of nature. If human strength wanted to contend with it, they must reach a strong enough realm. From this huge wave, Tang Zheng felt this imminent matter. Fortunately, the Tree of Life had quietly absorbed the energy of the ghost realm. This way they could avoid the destruction of this small world. Boom. The huge wave fell from the sky and hit the small fishing boat. In the next second, it was as if the small fishing boat would be smashed into pieces. The captain was hysterical. He used all his strength to scream. His eyes stared at the falling wave. His heart almost stopped beating. Boom. The huge wave fell on the fishing boat. The fishing boat remained motionless. Not even a wave hit the deck of the fishing boat. What was going on? The captain had been at sea for so many years. He had never seen such a magical scene. However, he soon found a clue. It turned out that the fishing boat was surrounded by a ray of light. It was like a protective cover covering the fishing boat. The captain was sluggish for a moment. Then he revealed a surprised and frightened expression. He knelt on the deck. Facing the light screen, he shouted, "The dragon god has appeared. The dragon god has appeared. Thank the dragon god for not killing me. Thank you." He was incoherent. He was so excited that he could not control himself. He mistook this miracle for the dragon god. Tang Zheng's mouth hooked up into a smile. Gui Qiansui really did not brag. In this sea he was not the absolute master. Ordinary danger really could not do anything to him. Xiao Bai jumped from Tang Zheng's left shoulder to the right. He was dancing with joy. He seemed to be very satisfied with this result. Marshall looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated look. How could he have so many divine soldiers in his hands? There was no one at the helm of the fishing boat. It went straight through the wind and waves toward the target sea area. Tang Zheng stood on the boat. He could vaguely see the turtle shell under the boat. Gui Qiansui carried the fishing boat forward. He was not afraid of the wind and waves. He passed through the storm area as fast as lightning. The sky was clear again. After traveling for a long time, a group of islands appeared in front of them. They were like pearls in the East Sea. They were beautiful and mysterious. Marshall could not hide her joy. She stretched her neck to look around. She tried to find some clues to judge which island they lived on. The captain finally came back to his senses. He looked at the handsome man and beautiful woman with mixed feelings. Previously he looked down on them. Now he was in fear and trepidation. You too, fortunately the dragon god has appeared. We were lucky to survive. You two are really lucky. You actually saw the dragon god. This is a miracle that only exists in legends. When I go back, I must worship the dragon god and ask him to bless me from now on. The ship captain was very happy to have survived the calamity and started to chatter incessantly. Tang Zheng smiled without batting an eyelid. He did not point out the details and said, "Do you know which island is inhabited?" Inhabited? The captain suspiciously rolled his eyes. There is nothing here. How can there be anyone living here? You must have found the wrong place. It's here. Marshall was the first to make a judgment. Tang Zheng nodded. Since the captain did not know, he would search the islands one by one. He would definitely find some clues. The fishing boat docked on the beach. Tang Zheng and Marshall said their goodbyes and let the captain go back by himself. Since there were people on this island, there must be a boat or other means of transportation. Therefore he was not worried. Stepping on the fine white sand, Tang Zheng and Marshall walked to the shore. This shore had not been developed. The scenery was too enchanting. Chapter 656. There were many trees in the forest that were cut in half at the waist, and there were many traces of sharp weapons on the tree trunks. There was even blood in the grass, but there were no dead or injured people. Wu's heart was already hanging in the air. His face became pale, and he quickened his pace towards the depths of the island. Tang Zheng's expression also became serious. It seemed that Wu's worries were not unnecessary. Something had really happened here. Since there are traces of a battle here, then they must be on this island. You don't have to worry too much, we will definitely find them. Tang Jing comforted her. Wu did not say a word, wind stirred up under his feet, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived at the depths of the island. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks and stared at the rows of houses hidden in the dense forest, her expression becoming excited. This is the architectural style of our martial sect. Wu's breathing became hurried as he flew to the front of the house and shouted loudly, "Master, mistress, where are you?" In the empty forest, there was only the sound of the wind and no one answered. "There's no one here. Let's go in and see if there are any clues," Tang Jing suggested and rushed into the house first. There were still many simple furniture in the house, and it was obvious that someone had lived in it before, but it was still empty. Wu immediately searched the room, but after a long while he still shook his head in disappointment, unable to find any clues. After a while the few of them finished searching the entire house, but they still did not find anything. Occasionally there would be mottled bloodstains and traces of battle, but they could not explain too many things. Marshall became extremely anxious. No matter what kind of enemy it was, to be able to reach this place and leave behind such a mess, it meant that the enemy was definitely not simple. The island was not big. The two of them followed the map and searched the entire island. Other than some occasional living facilities, there was nothing else. Wu sat in front of the hut like a defeated soldier. His head was hung low and his eyes were filled with despair. He muttered to himself, "Master, mistress, where did you go?" Tang Jing was infected by her emotions, and could not help but become worried. He squatted down, patted her shoulder and comforted her. Their cultivation is strong. Even if they really meet an enemy, they will still have the ability to protect themselves. Marshall shook his head in a daze and muttered, "Everything that is happening here is definitely not normal. I have absolute confidence in them, but I can't help but be a little worried." Tang Jing didn't know how to comfort him. If he encountered an enemy he would have a real fight with the enemy. But now he didn't even know who the enemy was. What could he do? For a moment the atmosphere was somewhat oppressive. The forest was filled with a deathly aura that made it hard for people to breathe. Suddenly Xiao Bai, who was lying on Tang Jing's shoulder, pricked up his ears. He stood up and squeaked at the sky. The sky was densely packed with trees, blocking out the sun. Only the mottled sunlight shone down, making it impossible to see what was above. Seeing Xiao Bai's abnormal state, Tang Jing's nerves immediately tensed up. He subconsciously got up and looked up. He couldn't see anything useful. Xiao Bai became irritable, her little claws kept slapping Tang Jing's head, her little eyes filled with anxiety. Tang Jing had never seen it like this before. He cried out in his heart and pulled the still dejected Marshall, shouting loudly, "There's danger, let's leave this place first." As soon as he finished speaking, a hurried whistling sound came from the sky. Boom! The mountains shook as if there was an earthquake. Dust flew everywhere and many trees turned into debris. A pungent smoke rose into the air, blocking the line of sight in front of them. Tang Jing could not stand steadily and directly fell with Marshall. Pressing down on her soft body, he could clearly feel the astonishing elasticity of her body. However, he was not in the mood to enjoy the beauty's grace because through the smoke, he could vaguely see a huge crater not far away. Explosion. Just now, it was actually a bomb that fell from the sky that caused the explosion. The two of them were affected by the shockwave, causing them to be in such a sorry state. The thing that whistled through the air was the cannonball. Xiao Bai's senses were much sharper than a human's, so he was the first to discover the abnormality. Fortunately, the cannonball did not hit where they were standing, otherwise even if they did not die they would still lose a layer of skin. After surviving a calamity, other than rejoicing, Tang Jing was also puzzled. Why would there be a cannonball on an island in the vast sea? Gigi. Xiao Bai cried out again, this time with an even more anxious voice, jumping up and down on Tang Jing's shoulder. Tang Jing knew that the situation was bad. He immediately carried Marshall and stood up. Without hesitation he used the earth-shrinking technique and rushed out of the island. Boom, boom, boom. A series of earth-shattering explosions sounded out behind them. The scorching heat wave seemed to want to roast people, but Tang Jing's speed did not slow down in the slightest. When he turned around, the forest had already turned into a sea of fire, as if it was hell on earth. The tranquil scenery just now was destroyed. He was extremely angry in his heart. Which bastard actually shot him with a cannonball? Whiz! He was like a gust of wind that rushed out of the forest and arrived at the shore. A cool sea breeze blew over, counteracting the scorching heat. However, he did not rashly rush to a conspicuous place. Instead, he dodged and hid behind a large rock. Wu was still in his embrace. Their bodies were tightly pressed against each other, and her chest was unreservedly pressed against his chest, causing it to change shape. Her cheeks couldn't help but flush red. Although the two of them had already had a few skin contact, every time she came into contact with Tang Jing so intimately, her heart would beat rapidly, like a little deer jumping around. Tang Jing did not have the slightest bit of romantic thoughts, because the situation in front of him was too strange. He looked at Wu with concern and comforted her. "With me here, don't worry, I won't let anyone hurt you." This sentence fiercely hit Wu's heart. The blush on her face became more and more obvious. She reluctantly left his embrace, looking at the sea of fire in the forest. Her brows immediately wrinkled and said, "Who did all this?" "Humph, no matter who it is, since they bombarded this island they are our target. Just now we were worried that we would not be able to find the enemy, but now the enemy has automatically appeared. It is convenient for us to follow the vine to find the melon." Tang Jing coldly said. "Then where is the enemy?" Wu immediately asked. Tang Jing looked up. The sea was vast and boundless, but there was no ship or enemy. Could it be, just now it was an air raid? Looking up at the sky, there was no shadow of the plane. Just when he was at a loss, a wave surged up on the shore, a small head popped out, and then a turtle shell also floated out of the water, crawling towards the two people. Tang Jing was overjoyed and shouted, "Gui Qiansui, over here." After a while, Gui Qiansui crawled to the two people's side and said, "Immortal, there was an enemy just now. You saw it? Who is it?" Tang Jing was ecstatic. He was worried about not having a target, but unexpectedly Gui Qiansui found it. Previously when the two people went ashore, Gui Qiansui stayed in the sea and did not follow them into the forest. "It is a big ship, a very big ship." Gui Qiansui said, "The big ship has already sailed to the east." "Then let's chase it, don't let it escape." Gui Qiansui confidently said, "Immortal, please rest assured the enemy cannot escape, I have sent the pursuers to follow it." This vast sea is Gui Qiansui's backyard, he always has a lot of methods. Chase. The two people directly jumped on Gui Qiansui's turtle shell. Gui Qiansui's body automatically grew, like a small boat, carrying the two people into the sea. The two people stood on the turtle shell against the wind, moving forward quickly, as if the two people were walking on the waves, extraordinarily elegant. If someone saw this scene they would be shocked and treat them as immortals. Gui Qiansui crawled very slowly on land, but in the sea he was like a fish in water, quickly moving forward, splashing waves beside him from time to time. A school of fish swam by. This kind of enjoyment really has a special charm. This was the first time Marshall experienced this kind of situation. He could not help but feel a little bit of waves in his heart, but Tang Jing, on the other hand, had a serious face, staring straight ahead. This sea area is the international sea, there are ships from all countries, it is a busy sailing line, but for the time being no other ships have been found, otherwise they will be frightened by this scene. The sun from the sky to the sea level a little bit, the sea was sparkling, it was exceptionally beautiful, making people feel the charm of the sea. In the distance, a huge outline suddenly came into view. Tang Jing's pupils suddenly shrank, staring at it. "Immortal, that is the target." Gui Qiansui reminded. "Chase it." Tang Jing ordered. Gui Qiansui rolled up a wave as fast as lightning, gradually narrowing the distance with the target. The target also gradually enlarged in Tang Jing's pupils, becoming clear and three-dimensional. Suddenly, his breathing quickened as he exclaimed, "A warship! How could this be as simple as a large ship?" It was actually a colossal warship. Compared to it, Tang Jing and the others were like tiny dots. "Gui Qiansui, is this the thing that fired the cannonball to attack us?" Tang Jing asked. "Yes, Immortal, this is the culprit." Xiao Bai also understood this. He bared his teeth at the warship as if he wanted to spit out a flame to burn it. No wonder Master and Master's wife have no news. In front of such a powerful firepower, the strength of a person will be insignificant. Marshall suddenly realized, angry. Which country's warship is this? Tang Jing looked at the flag on the warship. A round sun flag impressively came into view. Island nation. Tang Jing raised his eyebrows. This was truly a case of enemies meeting each other. He had too many conflicts with the island country, and in the past he had always met a group of martial artists. He never thought that he would meet the other party's regular army this time. Island nation, why did they attack Master and Master's wife? Marshall also recognized the target, flew into a rage. Chapter 657. In the night, Gui Qiansui quietly approached the warship with two people on his back. Suddenly the siren sounded loudly, and the headlights directly shot in the direction of Tang Jing, illuminating the dark sea as if it was daytime. A series of Japanese words came from the warship. The two people acted as if they didn't hear it, but urged Gue Chensui to speed up. In the blink of an eye they came to the warship. For ordinary people, the warship, which was tens of meters high, was like a cliff, like a natural moat. But for these two people, it was as if they were walking on flat ground. They grabbed the anchor and quickly climbed up. There were loud curses on the warship, and bullets were shot down from the side of the ship. However, the two people used the hull as a shield, so the bullets couldn't hurt them. Be careful when you go up, Tang Jing reminded them with concern. Wu nodded, and the two people jumped up into the air and flipped over to the deck of the warship. The deck was already full of armed officers and soldiers. When they saw the figure, they immediately pulled the trigger, and the bullets whistled, directly greeting the two people. Tang Jing took the lead. The dragon-trapping rope quickly rotated and turned into a shield. The bullets hit ding-dang on the shield but couldn't hurt the two people. Tang Jing was like a ferocious tiger, staring at one of the enemy's officers. As the saying goes, one must first capture the leader to capture the bandits. The enemy had many people, so if they continued to shoot, then there would be no way to play. I'm going to catch them, you be careful, Tang Jing ordered in a low voice, and like a fierce tiger, he pounced into the enemy. Baka! Island Nation's angry voice rose one after another. They all wanted to stop Tang Jing, but Tang Jing's personal strength was too strong. In this chaotic battle, although the other side had many people, they couldn't do anything to him. Moreover, several soldiers fired in a hurry, and mistakenly injured their companions. The other party was not stupid. Tang Jing's reckless attack was quickly seen through. Immediately, the soldiers volunteered to stop Tang Jing and prevent him from hurting the officer. The officer also retreated in a panic. Finally, he retreated to the cabin door and closed it with a bang. The thick cabin door completely isolated Tang Jing from the outside, as if they were in two different worlds. Damn it! Tang Jing cursed in a low voice. He turned around and faced the soldiers who were charging forward bravely. These people seemed to be in a frenzy, as if they were not afraid of death. Tang Jing's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he said, "Since you're courting death, don't blame me for being merciless." Tang Jing was enraged and began his counterattack. Immediately, a figure as fast as lightning could be seen shuttling through the crowd. Everywhere he went, someone would fall. At the same time, Marshall was not idle either. Her attacks were even more ruthless than Tang Jing's. She was merciless and ruthless. Wherever she went, blood would dye the ground red. After a while, there were no soldiers left standing on the deck. Those soldiers who were lucky enough to survive and were injured on the ground looked at the two of them as if they had seen ghosts. They all muttered in the language of the island nation as if they were talking to themselves. Master and mistress are most likely locked up on the warship. We have to rush down, Marshall said resolutely. Tang Jing nodded. The two of them arrived at the cabin door. The thick and heavy cabin door did not move at all. Even after Tang Jing punched it, it only shook a little. Humph, you want to use this piece of scrap metal to stop me? Wishful thinking. Tang Jing curled his lips in disdain. A light flashed in his hand and the War Soul Sword appeared. Clang. The War Soul Sword slashed onto the cabin door. Sparks flew in all directions and a huge cut appeared. When the other soldiers saw the power of this sword, they were shocked. It was as if the people who were cursing all shut their mouths. This was already beyond their scope of understanding. Clang, clang, clang. Tang Jing continued to brandish the War Soul Sword. The sword light and sparks intertwined and the slash grew larger and larger. Suddenly, there was a sound of silk tearing and a large hole was created in the cabin door. It was enough for people to pass through. Let's go in. Tang Jing had just raised his leg and was about to step in when he hurriedly retracted his head. He dodged to the side and a cold light flew past his cheek. Expert! Tang Jing and Marshall shouted at the same time. This attack was not an ammunition attack but a dart. It was even more lethal than a bullet. Baka! An angry roar came from the cabin door. A person rushed out. The cold light that filled the sky directly greeted Tang Jing and Marshall. Tang Jing was not in a hurry to dodge. Instead, he waved the War Soul Sword and blocked all the hidden weapons. From beginning to end, Marshall did not move. Even her feet did not move at all. She knew that these hidden weapons would not be able to pass through Tang Jing. She stared at the uninvited guest and shouted, "Martial artist, he's a martial artist. Baka, are you people from Wuxia?" The other party could actually understand Wuxia language and asked in a stiff Wuxia language, You people from Wuxia actually attacked our island nation's warship. This is a declaration of war, this is war. We will definitely trample your country like we did decades ago. The other party was unable to restrain his anger as he continued to clamor. The arrogance and pride on his face were undeniable. Tang Jing stared at him in ridicule and said, "Nonsense. Do you think that Wuxia is still the weak Wuxia from 100 years ago? You island nation people still want to invade Wuxia. I'll kill you first." As soon as he finished speaking, Tang Jing had already attacked the other party. This person was indeed a martial artist with a cultivation of the second stage of the pre-celestial stage. He was not weak, but in front of Tang Jing he was still too weak. Before he could even withstand 5 moves from Tang Jing, the War Soul Sword was pressed against his throat and he was captured. The other party was defeated, but his arrogance did not weaken in the slightest. Instead he shouted arrogantly, not putting Tang Jing in his eyes at all. Tang Jing's eyes flashed with killing intent as he said disdainfully, "A group of arrogant and conceited fellows, still living in the dream of 100 years ago, thinking that they are number one in the world." The strength in his hand burst forth. Tang Jing was prepared to kill the other party, but Wu hurriedly stopped him. "Interrogate him first. Do you know where my master and mistress are?" "Right, I almost forgot. Don't even think about getting any information out of me. Even if you beat me to death, I won't say anything." The other party resolutely raised his head and looked at the two of them arrogantly. Tang Jing laughed coldly and said, "Who said I need you to speak?" With that, his 5 fingers grabbed the other party's head. The other party revealed a puzzled expression, and even Wu had a suspicious look on his face. There is a type of spell called the soul-searching technique. Any of his secrets will be revealed in front of the soul-searching technique. Tang Jing explained. Wu suddenly came to a realization, but the people of the island nation were still shrouded in fog, not knowing what he meant. But in the next second he knew that something was wrong. He had a splitting headache as if his head was about to explode. He screamed hysterically. The screams came to an abrupt end. His eyes turned dull and white. He had already turned into an idiot. This was the after effect of the soul-searching technique. As a result, Tang Jing would not easily use it. However, he did not feel the slightest bit of psychological pressure when using this technique on the people of the island nation. Compared to the invasion war of the past, this method was negligible. How is it? Wu was also shocked by the reaction of the people of the island nation. His heart couldn't help but beat faster. Tang Jing frowned, shook his head with a puzzled expression and said, "You didn't find any information about them?" How could this be? They came to attack the island, how could they not know about master and mistress?" Marshall said in disbelief, "Cast this spell again and see if you missed out on this information." "No need, the soul-searching technique won't miss any information." Tang Jing was full of confidence. It seems that he really doesn't know. Wu's face revealed a look of despair as he muttered to himself, "Master, mistress, where exactly are you? Don't worry, although we don't know their whereabouts, we still have other news. They were ordered to bomb this island. As long as we find out who gave the order, we will definitely know the reason." Tang Jing added. "Who gave the order?" "Island nation's royal family." "Royal family?" Wu was stunned. "Yes, do you dare to break into Island nation's royal family?" Wu's face revealed a determined look as he fearlessly said, "Why wouldn't I dare? For master and mistress, even if it's a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, I dare to break into it." You have guts. Then let's deal with that officer and leave this place." Tang Jing pointed at the military who was holed up at the cabin door and said with a smile. That officer looked as if he had seen a ghost, turned around and ran. "Wanna run? It's too late." Tang Jing moved his feet and kicked a hidden weapon on the ground, which whistled through the air and shot into the officer's back. The officer staggered and fell to the ground. After struggling for a while, he completely stopped moving. "Let's go." The two jumped down from the side of the ship and steadily landed on Gui Chensue's back. Looking up at the tall ship, Tang Jing frowned and said, "We almost died under its cannon fire. If we let it go, it would be too easy for it." "Then what are you going to do?" Tang Jing had an idea and said, "Just watch." Taking out the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow, he opened the bow and pulled the arrow. With a buzzing sound, the bowstring trembled and the shooting sun arrow left the string. A huge black hole appeared at the bottom of the ship and the seawater crazily poured into the black hole. Sinking to the bottom of the sea, naturally you can't show off anymore, Tang Jing said. Xiaobai leaped and jumped into the sea. After a while, it swam back with the shooting sun arrow in its mouth. Tang Zheng stroked its little head and praised it, then urged Gui Qiansui to leave. A large amount of seawater poured in, causing the warship to tilt and sink bit by bit. With a rumbling sound, it directly fell into the sea and quickly sank to the bottom of the sea. A passenger ship came from afar and recorded the scene of the warship sinking to the bottom of the sea, especially the sun flag. Not long after, the video spread all over the internet. Island nation's warship sinking into the sea was undoubtedly a slap to the island nation's face. In these years, the island nation had risen again, especially in terms of military strength. Their development was rapid, and many island nation people had already claimed to be the strongest country in Asia, clamoring for other Asian countries to submit to them. The sinking of the warship immediately caused a huge uproar on the internet and became the target of ridicule for netizens from various countries. Chapter 658. Tang Jing did not know that his impulsive action had caused such an uproar. Even if he knew there would be such a consequence, he would still do it and would be happier. He was happy to see the island nation lose face. He didn't have a good impression of this country and its people. Gui Qiansui carried the two and cut through the waves. He deliberately avoided the busy route and quietly entered the island nation's sea and finally landed in a remote place. For Tang Jing, smuggling was so simple. Before this, he had never been to the island nation. He was not familiar with this place. Marshall looked at him with eager eyes, clearly wanting him to make a decision. Tang Jing had no choice but to say, "Let's find someone to inquire." The two did not speak the island nation's language, but they spoke English, which was an international language. When the two came to a busy area, they pretended to be tourists and asked about the location of the island nation's royal family. They did not expect that this was not a secret, and soon they got the result. The island nation's royal family lived in the center of the bustling Tokyo. It was composed of three parts: the East Imperial Court, the Outer Court, and the square in front of the Imperial Court. The island nation people were used to calling it the Imperial Court. Some of the Imperial Courts were even open to tourists for sightseeing. "Are we going to break into the Imperial Court directly?" Wu asked. "This is their territory. We can't be reckless. If we are not careful, they will find out. If the hostage is in their hands, they will definitely kill us. Since the Imperial Court is open to the public, we will be tourists and go there." Tang Jing made up his mind. We thought for a while and nodded. The two pretended to be a couple and came to Tokyo. For others, this trip may expose their whereabouts, but for them there was no such problem. They did not stay in a hotel and did not leave any trace. Even if something happened in the future, the other side could not find them. After experiencing this trip, Tang Jing finally found the reaction caused by his previous action. He wondered if he should do more of this kind of thing in the future, and hit the island nation's arrogance. Tokyo. Tang Jing and Marshall had already followed the crowd and entered the Imperial Palace. The Imperial Palace did not have a large area for tourists to visit, and it was not easy to sneak into the important places of the Imperial Palace because there were people in charge of every key place. "What should we do?" Marshall asked again. Unknowingly, she had become accustomed to listening to Tang Jing's decisions when she was with him. Tang Jing looked at the tightly guarded Kokyo from afar. There were no blind spots in the Kokyo surveillance system. There were people and cameras everywhere. It would not be easy for Tang Jing to sneak in. Previously, he didn't expect the other party's defense to be so tight. Now he couldn't think of a way. Right at this moment, a group of people walked over from afar. This group of people had extraordinary auras, and there were experts hidden among them. Tang Jing recognized them with a single glance. All of a sudden, his pupils constricted as he stared at a face in the crowd. He was very familiar with this face as they had spent a period of time together. Marshall also saw this person. His expression suddenly changed and he wanted to rush over. Tang Jing reacted quickly and pulled her back. He advised her in a low voice, "Don't move, this is someone else's territory." Wu Shuang's eyes lit up as he said excitedly, "Holy Maiden of Li Palace, since she is here, then the matter between master and mistress must be related to Li Palace. I want to ask her clearly." That familiar face was the Holy Maiden of Li Palace, Li Xiaotian. To be honest, Tang Jing was also shocked by the other party's arrival. How could the Li Palace have a connection with the island nation's royal family? "Are your martial sect and Li Palace very close to the island nation?" Tang Jing asked, puzzled. "Nonsense, the martial sect and Li Palace are like mortal enemies with the island nation. Back then, when the island nation launched an invasion, both sides fought many times and both sides suffered casualties. It could be said that they have formed a blood feud." Marshall said fiercely, but her tone was also filled with doubt. With her experience, Li Xiaotian should not be mixed up with the island nation's royal family. But the scene in front of her could not be fake. In this world there are no eternal enemies, only eternal benefits. The battle back then has already been over for decades and many people have already chosen to forget it. For the sake of benefits, many people will not care about the enmity of the past. Tang Jing explained. The more he interacted with those so-called successful people, the more obvious this feeling became. For the sake of benefits they would do anything. As long as the price was right, anything could be given up, not to mention the war and hatred that they did not personally experience decades ago. Marshall was indignant and reprimanded, "This is forgetting your ancestors." Tang Jing shook his head and sighed. This was the reality. While they were talking, Li Xiaotian and his group had already passed the guards and entered the imperial palace, disappearing from their sight. Letting her run away like this is too unreconciled, Marshall hatefully said. Tang Jing patted her shoulder and comforted her. Since she came here, it means that this matter is related to the Li Palace. We are not looking in the wrong direction. She entered the imperial palace, but she cannot stay inside forever. We will wait for her outside. Marshall looked at the center of the imperial palace from afar, helplessly and unwillingly nodded his head. The tour time for the tourists was over. Tang Jing and Marshall walked out with the others and left the imperial palace. The two of them did not go far. They hid in a corner far away, observing the movements of the imperial palace. As night fell, the imperial palace seemed especially quiet and beautiful. All kinds of buildings in the darkness showed the majesty of the imperial power. Tang Jing vaguely remembered that the tour guide had mentioned that the imperial palace was a relic left behind from the ancient times. Now that it had become the residence of the imperial family, if he could set the imperial palace on fire, the commotion would definitely surpass the silence of the warship. It would definitely be able to deal a heavy blow to the island nation. This kind of heavy blow would be mental and reputation. The reputation of the island nation's imperial family would definitely be ruined. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. He wanted nothing more than to rush up and start a fire. But he quickly calmed down. If the imperial palace was so easy to set on fire, then it would not be the imperial palace. The other party would definitely have a complete firefighting strategy and equipment. Moreover, the imperial palace occupied a large area. If one place was set on fire, the other places would not necessarily be affected. Look, someone is coming out. Marshall touched Tang Jing's arm and reminded him in a low voice. Tang Jing looked up and saw a group of people walking out of the imperial palace. One of them was the target, Li Xiaotian. They got on the car and drove into the night. Chase. In the bustling city, the speed of the car was not fast. The two of them hid in the night and followed from afar. Take advantage of the fact that they are weak and capture her. You can use your soul-searching technique again and everything will be revealed. Marshall suggested. Tang Jing looked at the cars and pedestrians passing through the traffic and rejected this suggestion. This was a place to cause trouble. If they were to attack here, it would definitely cause a commotion. Li Xiaotian would not allow herself to be captured without a fight. If she was careless and let her escape, it would not be easy to find her again. Moreover, if the commotion was too big, the officials of the island nation would not sit idly by. If the reinforcements continued to arrive, even if it was a human wave tactic, Tang Jing would not be able to handle it. For the sake of safety, he absolutely could not act rashly. Follow them first and see where they go, Tang Jing said. The car drove through the bustling streets. The buildings on both sides became fewer and fewer, and the people became fewer and fewer. Marshall couldn't help but want to make a move a few times, but was persuaded by Tang Jing. In front of them, a resort villa that occupied an aurora came into view. Under the cover of the beautiful cherry blossoms, the villa was exceptionally beautiful. The car quietly drove into the villa and closed the door, blocking their line of sight. Go in. This time Tang Jing did not hesitate. He and Marshall hid under the walls of the villa, avoided the surveillance cameras and easily climbed in. Let's split up and look for them. Remember not to act rashly after finding them. Inform me, and then we will secretly capture Li Xiaotian and interrogate him for the details. Tang Jing warned. Marshall nodded and impatiently disappeared into the night. It had to be said that the scenery of this villa was very beautiful. The buildings were also ancient, as if they had traveled back to ancient times. The air was filled with the fragrance of cherry blossoms, making people feel refreshed. The night gave Tang Jing the best cover. He went deeper and deeper into the villa and found that there were many people living in the villa. Moreover, this was a hot spring villa. He had already passed by a few hot springs, and the people inside were soaking in the hot springs. There were many beauties among them, and of course there were also men and women mixed in the hot springs. Finally, he saw a person respectfully retreat from a house from afar. This was a familiar face. Previously he was with Li Xiaotian. Looking at his respectful attitude just now, there must be someone important living in this house. That is most likely Li Xiaotian. Tang Jing guessed. He tiptoed closer to the house, not daring to make a single sound. With Li Xiaotian's cultivation, any slight movement would not be able to escape her ears. He did not want to alert the enemy. Listening carefully, there was the sound of water splashing in the room. Other than that, there was nothing else. No matter who is inside, let's sneak in and take a look first. He felt his way under a window. The window was not locked. He opened the window a crack and peeked inside. The room was luxuriously decorated, but he did not see anyone. However, the sound of running water was particularly clear. Whiz. He was like a ghost, quietly flipping through the window. The house was very big. In front of him stood a huge screen. Wisps of water vapor were emitted from behind the screen. The sound of water also came from behind the screen. Tang Jing quietly came in front of the screen. There was a lot of mist behind the screen, blocking his line of sight. The sound of water splashing could be heard in front of him. Chapter 659. A naked woman was leaning against the edge of the pool. Dense steam lingered around her body, as if she was a fairy in a fairyland. Her skin was white with a hint of rosy, delicate. Her long, silky hair draped over her shoulders like a waterfall, forming a stark contrast with her snow-white skin. More than half of her upper body was submerged in the water, revealing half of her towering breasts. Their reflections in the water were like two mountain peaks, exceptionally alluring. She squinted her eyes, enjoying the effect of the warm pool water. Tang Jing's heart could not help but tremble as he looked at the beauty in the pool in surprise. She was indeed beautiful, even more beautiful than when she was wearing normal clothes, making people unable to help but feel a rush of excitement. Tang Jing's head was very disappointing. He had a feeling of restlessness, and the suppressed pure yang energy seemed to show signs of erupting again. He quickly took a few deep breaths and circulated his energy, suppressing the restlessness in his heart. His eyes became cold. This was a flower with thorns. If he was not careful, he would be stung. Tang Jing did not want to be a dissolute ghost under this flower. Suddenly, Li Xiaotian's eyelids trembled. She suddenly opened her eyes and turned to look at Tang Jing. Tang Jing cursed in his heart. When he took a deep breath, there was a slight movement, which was noticed by the other party. Degree C. He did not have time to think. He slid to Li Xiaotian's side and looked down from above. He could clearly see her body and even the blurry scenery in the pool. Li Xiaotian's eyes flashed with a cold light. When she saw that it was Tang Jing, she could not hide her surprise. Her reaction was not slow either. She slapped the side of the pool with her palm, causing thousands of water droplets to fly out of the pool. She slapped her palm towards Tang Jing. Tang Jing made the first move. With a flip of his hands, both of his palms struck out. Li Xiaotian took this palm and flew backwards. Only a beautiful figure was left in the air. She was completely naked and extremely alluring. Tang Jing gave chase. With a tap of his toes, he leaped into the air above the pond. Li Xiaotian was in mid-air. He hooked his toes upwards and hung on the chandelier on the ceiling. Looking down from above, he kicked Tang Jing. She was not wearing a single piece of clothing, and this movement was very large. Her long legs kicked out, and every part of her body was completely exposed to Tang Jing's line of sight. That curvaceous body caused Tang Jing's blood vessels to expand, and his heart failed to live up to his expectations as it fiercely beat. Pure yang energy quickly circulated in his meridians. Tang Jing gritted his teeth and held on. He struck out like lightning and repelled the opponent's attack. Then he grabbed one of her legs and pulled it down. Voila! The two of them fell from the sky into the pool together, splashing water everywhere. They still didn't stop and continued to fight in the pool. Li Xiaotian's cultivation was not as good as Tang Jing's. After a few rounds, it was obvious that she was losing. However, Tang Jing definitely didn't have it easy. This was because not only did he have to fight Li Xiaotian, he also had to suppress the pure yang energy in his body. Li Xiaotian was naked. Every time they fought, Tang Jing could see the tempting scenery. Occasionally, there would even be skin-to-skin contact. This didn't seem like a battle but more like flirting. Little by little, it aroused Tang Zheng's desire. Li Xiaotian, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had happened. She didn't seem to have any psychological barriers. It was as if she was fighting Tang Zheng with her clothes on. There wasn't a trace of shyness on her face. Li Xiaotian launched another attack. Tang Zheng quickly dodged. Then he reached out with his hand and grabbed the opponent's shoulder. Then he firmly restrained her. The battle finally came to an end. At this moment, Li Xiaotian was leaning on Tang Zheng's chest. Her body was tightly hugged by Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's arm was placed across her chest and fiercely pressed down. Her chest was directly flattened. The astonishing elasticity was like a flame that stirred up Tang Zheng's arm. Both of their breathing was a little hurried. The warm pool water caused their bodies to rapidly heat up. Li Xiaotian's breath was like orchids. Her face became more and more delicate, making people unable to resist kissing her. Suddenly she rolled her eyes and giggled. Tang Zheng, you actually came all the way to an island nation for me? You even took advantage of me soaking in the hot spring to ambush me. You really are a big baddie. Her laughter was charming. It was as if there was a soul-stirring magic that made people's hearts palpitate. Tang Zheng's face was ashen. He said, "Don't flatter yourself. We can be considered to be acquaintances. Honestly, answer a few of my questions. Then I will leave immediately." "Well, I've always told you everything I know, and all my secrets are open to you," Li Xiaotian said in a sweet voice. Tang Zheng coldly snorted. He knew that this two-faced woman's words could not be trusted. He threatened, "You know that I am a cultivator. I know a spell called the soul-searching technique. If you don't honestly answer, then I can also use the soul-searching technique on you to find the answer I want. But in that way you will become an idiot." "Idiot? Wow, you have no conscience. You are too cruel. We went through fire and water together. How can you bear to treat me like this? Don't use this trick to deal with me. This trick is useless against me," Tang Zheng righteously said. Is that so?" Li Xiaotian's eyes were full of charm. Her body slightly moved, rubbing against Tang Zheng's body. This soul-stirring body had too much magic. It immediately made Tang Zheng feel as if he had fallen into a pit of fire. His whole body was unbearably hot. His body could not help but have a reaction. Li Xiaotian's body slightly stiffened. She clearly felt the changes in Tang Zheng's body. Then she smiled charmingly. "Didn't you say it was useless? I think it is very useful." Tang Zheng was embarrassed. His cheeks involuntarily turned red. He cursed in his heart. It was really useless. How could there be a reaction? This was a big embarrassment. Li Xiaotian seemed to be encouraged. She rubbed more and more vigorously. Tang Zheng's clothes had already become wet. There was not much of a blocking effect. He rubbed against Li Xiaotian's naked body. The taste was particularly ecstatic. "You are playing with fire. Do you know that?" Tang Zheng angrily said. Is that so? Then I want to see how big this fire can be ignited." Li Xiaotian did not care in the slightest. The veins on Tang Zheng's forehead bulged. As a man, especially a man who was on the verge of erupting with pure yang energy, this kind of feeling was truly torturous. But he knew what kind of person Li Xiaotian was. If he had a relationship with her, it was really courting death. He could go to King Yama at any time. "I don't believe I can't control you." With a thought, Tang Zheng used the body-locking technique. Li Xiaotian's body suddenly stiffened, and then she was unable to move. Whoosh! Tang Zheng finally let out a sigh of relief. He turned in front of Li Xiaotian and stared straight at her. "What did you do to me? I told you to be honest, but you didn't listen. So I can only use this method." Li Xiaotian's eyes flashed with disappointment. As the holy maiden of Li Palace, she had to learn too many things. The people of Li Palace had a deep-rooted enmity towards men, but that did not mean that they did not understand men. On the contrary, they understood men very well, especially their most basic desires. Li Xiaotian had learned martial arts from a young age, and also the art of charm. It was just that she had never had the opportunity to use it on anyone. Just now, when she was caught by Tang Zheng, she did not panic. Instead, she used her art of charm. In this kind of situation, when the two were almost completely sincere, it was a unique opportunity to use her art of charm. However, under the influence of pure yang energy, Tang Zheng still held on to his heart and protected the trace of clarity in his mind. It had to be said that at his age, to be able to do this required a great deal of willpower and courage. The failure of her art of charm made Li Xiaotian feel a sense of defeat. Losing in the first battle was a blow to her heart. However, she did not completely give up. She was a person who would not give up even at the last moment. She knew that Tang Zheng was a kind person. Back then, the two of them had experienced so many things together. It could be said that they had gone through trials and tribulations together. He probably would not harm her life. She was very surprised that Tang Zheng would appear here, and was even more curious about his goal. Li Xiaodan, why did you come to the island nation? Tang Zheng asked straightforwardly. Traveling. Li Xiaotian blinked her eyes. Don't people say that the cherry blossoms of the island nation are very beautiful? This period of time happens to be when the cherry blossoms are blooming, so I came to appreciate the exotic scenery. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. He took a step closer, his cheek almost touching her face, and said, You don't even have a draft when you lie. Looking at cherry blossoms, do you really think I'm a 3-year-old child? Ehe, of course you're not a 3-year-old child. Do you think a 3-year-old child has the ability to do that? Li Xiaotian smiled again. Her eyes unscrupulously looked at Tang Zheng's lower body. Tang Zheng was incomparably embarrassed. Just now he lost control of himself and became the target of her ridicule. He pretended that he did not hear anything and continued to ask, Who did you go to the imperial palace to see? What exactly did you collude with the island nation's royal family? Li Xiaoyan's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Clearly, she did not expect that Tang Zheng would know about her relationship with the island nation's royal family. However, she immediately returned to normal. She playfully blinked and asked, What do you think? Tang Zheng felt a headache coming on. Dealing with this woman was completely different from dealing with other people. She was like a slippery loach. He did not know where to start. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Don't blame me for being ruthless and using the soul-searching technique on you. Don't. Look at how pitiful I am. How can you have the heart to treat me like that? If you want to know, I'll tell you. Li Xiaotian hurriedly said. That's for the best. Tang Zheng let out a sigh of relief. If he had no other choice, he really did not want to treat her like that. The emperor has a strange illness. I have a way to treat it, so of course they treat me as a guest of honor. The emperor is sick. Tang Zheng was incomparably shocked. This was explosive news. The outside world definitely does not know about this situation, right? Of course. The emperor is a symbol of the island nation. Especially this generation's emperor. He has a lot of prestige among the people. If the people know that he is sick, it will definitely cause quite a disturbance. It may even cause the island nation's political situation to become unstable. Li Xiaotian said. Tang Zheng's heart moved. Since this was the case, then this news should be made public. Li Xiaotian looked at him without blinking. She chuckled and said, Actually, I have the same idea as you. Tang Zheng was startled and said, How did you know what I was thinking? Chapter 660. Tang Zheng was truly shocked by Li Xiaoyan's words. He couldn't help but look at her in shock. Don't look at me like that. I'm not familiar with the island nation's emperor. Moreover, that war killed so many of our people. Some people thought that everyone had forgotten about it, but they didn't know that someone still remembers it. Tang Zheng couldn't see through her. He originally thought that Li Xiaotian was colluding with the island nation's royal family. He didn't think that she would have such thoughts. What kind of illness does he have? Tang Zheng curiously asked. I don't know the exact situation yet, but it's definitely not an ordinary illness. Moreover, this kind of illness is very secretive. It's not suitable to announce it to the public. Li Xiaotian blinked and smiled meaningfully. Didn't you go to the imperial palace today? How could you not know? You can't be so naive as to think that I can understand everything just by going to the imperial palace? I'm still an outsider. Wouldn't the island nation's people be on guard against me? To tell you the truth, I didn't even see the emperor today. Tang Zheng's brows furrowed as he fell into deep thought. Things had taken a sudden turn and turned out like this. His original target was his own parents, but now this matter had popped up. He stared at Li Xiaotian, trying to discern the truth in her words. In the end, he realized that it was all in vain. Li Xiaoyan's shrewdness was too deep. How could it be so easy to see through her? You don't believe me? Li Xiaotian seemed to have seen through his doubts and asked with a smile. Tang Zheng snorted and didn't comment. He then asked, What is the relationship between the Li Palace and the martial organization? Back then, the Li Palace's palace master, Grandma Li, helped the martial organization's great elder to usurp the throne. The relationship between the two was not shallow, but he couldn't figure out the relationship between the two. Li Xiaotian was slightly surprised. She couldn't help but laugh. Why do you care about this question? I'm the one asking the question, not you. Just obediently answer it. Tang Jing purposely said with a straight face. Don't be so fierce, hee. Li Xiaotian laughed. Actually, you have to ask the palace master about this because as far as I know, the two sides don't have a close relationship. It seems that you were also kept in the dark. Tang Jing did not think so. A strange look flashed across Li Xiaotian's face as he said, don't listen to the words of others. Then do you know about the martial sect leader? I heard that he betrayed the martial organization, and then disappeared into thin air. You are a cultivator, why are you so concerned about the martial organization? Li Xiaotian asked curiously. The relationship between Wu Junshan and Tang Zheng was a secret. It was related to the reputation of the martial arts sect. Granny Li and the First Elder had strictly forbidden it to be spread. Therefore even Li Xiaotian did not know about it. Tang Zheng's expression kept changing as she stared at Li Xiaotian. There wasn't the slightest difference between her brows. Could it be that this time she really didn't come for Wu Junshan, but for the emperor of the island nation? Tang Zheng could not find the exact answer. I've answered all your questions. Can you let me go now? Could it be that you want to keep looking at my body like this? When I was by your side, why didn't you tell me that you liked my body so much? Who knows, I might even fulfill your wish. Li Xiaotian said in a charming manner. Every word seemed to have magic, drilling into Tang Zheng's ears and igniting the flames in his heart. Tang Zheng subconsciously looked at her body, and her curvaceous body made his heartbeat uncontrollably quicken by a bit. He quickly guarded his mind and pointed at her body, dispelling the body-locking technique. Li Xiaotian regained her freedom, but she was not in a hurry to find clothes to cover her body. Instead, she was still bare-chested and looked at him with a smile. Her gaze moved around his lower body a few times. She covered her mouth and chuckled, Are you really not going to do anything? If you miss this time, there won't be such a good opportunity next time. Tang Jing snorted and said, Next time when you go to the island nation's imperial palace, can you take me with you? If it was someone else, I wouldn't agree even if you beat me to death. But you, it's a different story. I am going to the imperial palace tomorrow. You can come with me. Okay. Tang Jing promised. As the saying goes, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Although he couldn't judge the truth of Li Xiaotian's words, this was the only way. Otherwise, if he stayed at a dead end without making any progress, it would delay the important matters. Aren't you afraid that I will sell you? Li Xiaotian asked with a smile. If you want to sell me, you won't be able to get any benefits. Don't worry, even if I sell you, I won't sell you to an island nation person. Creak. The door was pushed open and a gust of cold wind blew in. A figure suddenly flashed past the screen and arrived at the side of the pool. Who is it? Li Xiaotian shouted. Her face was as cold as frost, revealing her killing intent. At the same time she turned around, bringing with her a sky full of water droplets, and rushed to the clothes rack at the side. With a grab, a towel wrapped around her graceful body. Marshall looked at this scene in disbelief. She had been looking for Li Xiaotian and finally came to the front of the house. Hearing someone talking inside, it seemed to be Tang Zheng's voice, so she rushed in without hesitation. But she never thought that she would see such an erotic scene. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian stood naked in the pool. Tang Zheng's clothes were completely wet, causing people to have too many thoughts. How unsightly was the scene from before. She could almost picture it without thinking. Anger rushed from the bottom of her heart to the top of her head. Her face turned ashen as she flew into a rage. Shameless. She rushed towards Li Xiaotian in a flash. With a wave of her hand, the roaring flame saber's scorching waves of qi continued to surge towards Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian did not retreat but instead went forward to meet her. Immediately the two beautiful figures moved and dodged. They fought happily but it was pleasing to the eye. Tang Zheng, the bystander, took advantage of it. Seeing the flying figures and the occasional spring scenery was even more stimulating than seeing the naked body just now, causing people to almost have a nosebleed. Marshall, are you crazy? What are you doing? Li Xiaotian asked. The two of them could be considered old acquaintances. Now that they had met and directly fought, Li Xiaotian had not expected it. Shameless woman, I'm going to kill you. In the past, Marshall and Li Xiaotian's cultivation were on par, but ever since Marshall had an intimate relationship with Tang Zheng, his cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds. Now that he had cultivated the martial arts of the Langya Pavilion, it was like adding wings to a tiger, and had already increased his cultivation to the 5th grade of the pre-celestial stage. Li Xiaotian had not been idle during this period of time. He had worked hard to train and had already reached the 3rd grade of the pre-celestial stage. However, compared to Martial there was still a large gap. The more Li Xiaotian fought, the more uncertain he became. He could not help but glance at Tang Zheng from the corner of his eyes, and pondered, could it be that Martial's cultivation had improved so quickly in such a short period of time? After interacting with Tang Zheng for so long, he knew very well that he was a miracle creator. Not only him, even the people around him would benefit greatly. With Martial's normal cultivation speed, it should be similar to Li Xiaotian's. Now that his cultivation had increased greatly, it was definitely related to Tang Zheng. Immediately she could not help but feel jealous of Martial. If she had stayed by Tang Zheng's side, perhaps the one whose cultivation had increased greatly would be her. Seeing that Martial was going crazy and attacking fiercely, Li Xiaotian was exhausted and did not dare to face the enemy head-on. Suddenly he caught a glimpse of Tang Zheng, who was like a block of wood, and immediately dodged behind him. Martial's attack suddenly stopped and he said angrily, "Get out of the way." Tang Zheng did not know why Martial's anger was so fierce and advised, "Calm down. If you actually spoke up for her." This, Li Xiaotian rolled his eyes, suddenly came to a realization and chuckled, "Haha, so that's how it is. Martial, didn't you always love martial arts? Why are you so moved by a man now? Seeing me like this with her, you must be jealous and angry, right?" A trace of panic and redness flashed across Wu's face as he reprimanded, "Nonsense. I'm a woman. Can you still deceive my eyes? Looks like you've really fallen in love with Tang Zheng. A person from the martial sect falling in love with a cultivator, this is truly an interesting thing." "Oh, that's not right, you're no longer a person from the martial sect, so it's understandable for you to like him," Li Xiaotian said to himself, completely ignoring the growing anger in Wu's eyes. Hearing that, Tang Zheng subconsciously looked towards Wu. Coincidentally, Wu also looked at him, and when their eyes met, she hurriedly shifted her gaze away unnaturally. Tang Zheng was not an idiot, his heart moved. Could it be that Wu really has fallen in love with him? "Tang Zheng, you really have a lot of luck with women, you have so many female friends by your side, even a great beauty like Wu has fallen in love with you. I admire you, congratulations," Li Xiaotian said with a smile that was not a smile. "Shut up," Wu roared. In fact, she herself could not clearly explain her inner thoughts. Her relationship with Tang Zheng was too complicated. First, they had a physical relationship, and more than once at that. That feeling made her feel both embarrassed and nostalgic. This was a secret that could not be revealed to outsiders, and it had always been fermenting in the depths of her heart. Especially when she promised Tang Zheng that if he accompanied her to find her master and mistress, then she would follow him wholeheartedly. This was like a form of self-hypnosis. When this promise was made, the perseverance in her heart began to waver, and she unconsciously leaned towards Tang Zheng. When she saw the scene between Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian just now, a sour taste welled up in her heart, and she couldn't help but explode. All of this, even she herself did not notice anything strange. It was only when Li Xiaotian pierced through her thoughts that she realized what she was thinking in a panic. "The more angry you are, the more it shows that you are guilty. The more accurate my guess is." Li Xiaotian laughed calmly. Seeing that Wu was like an angry lioness, Tang Zheng immediately advised, "Remember our purpose for coming here, stop messing around." Wu was slightly startled. He immediately remembered the safety of his master and mistress. His expression instantly changed and he asked, "Li Xiaodan, you colluded with the island nation's royal family, what exactly did you do to my master and mistress?" When he said that, Tang Zheng cursed in his heart. Just now he had purposely concealed this matter because he did not want Li Xiaotian to know. This woman's thoughts were too complicated. The more he knew, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. Chapter 661. Now that things had come to this, it was already a foregone conclusion. It was impossible for Tang Zheng to hide it. Sure enough, the smile in Li Xiaotian's sparkling eyes became more and more intense as he said, "So that's how it is. I was wondering why you guys would travel so far and cross the ocean to Island Nation. So it turns out that Wu Junshan and his wife have both gone missing. This is big news." Marshall was slightly startled as he looked at her suspiciously. Could it be that she did not know about this matter? She turned her head to look at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng faintly sighed and explained, "She came to Island Nation for another matter." Marshall said in disbelief, "How could that be? Didn't she go to the Imperial Palace? Isn't it just colluding with the Island Nation's royal family and harming master and mistress?" Marshal, you guessed wrong. I don't even know where your master and the others are, so how could I harm him? Moreover, he is a martial artist of the great master realm. What ability do I have to harm him? Li Xiaotian asked with a smile. Marshal coldly snorted and said, of course you are not master's match by yourself. You are full of tricks and Grandma Li is vicious and merciless. If you join forces with the island nation's royal family, it might not be impossible for you to do this. In short, I won't believe your words. Li Xiaotian spread out his hands and said helplessly, if you don't tell me the details, I can't do anything about it. Tang Zheng, I've already told you the truth. It's up to you to believe it or not. Tang Zheng's expression kept changing. Marshal and Li Xiaotian both looked at him at the same time. After a while, Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and said, whether I believe you or not, the most important thing right now is that I must go with you to the Imperial Palace. I've already promised you, so of course there's no problem. Li Xiaotian smiled charmingly and agreed. Hearing this, Marshal quickly asked, you guys are going to the Imperial Palace? The Imperial Palace is heavily guarded, so she can enter and leave freely. In order to hide her identity, she must sneak in to find out more information. Tang Zheng explained. Marshal took a deep look at Li Xiaotian. The smile on her face did not disappear, making it hard to figure out. But for his master and mistress, he could only compromise temporarily in order to sneak into the Imperial Palace. I'll go with you, Marshal said. Tang Zheng was about to nod his head, but Li was the first time and refused. That won't do, the Imperial Palace is heavily guarded. I was the only one. Was I allowed to enter? You guys must have seen the people by my side. They are the people of the Imperial Palace is to protect me, but they are to guard is to monitor me. I will be in the Imperial Palace. Is the Imperial Palace is Imperial Palace? Are you trying to trick me? Wu immediately said. Li Xiaotian did not mind and said, I know you won't believe me. As for whether it is a trick or not, that will be up to you guys to decide. In any case, I can only bring one person in, you guys can discuss among yourselves. Tang Zheng did not expect such a result and asked, is there really no other way? Li Xiaotian firmly shook his head. The two of them looked at each other, both of them wanting to enter the Imperial Palace and investigate. But what would happen after entering, what kind of danger they would encounter, they were unable to predict. Marshal, wait for me outside, I will go in. Tang Zheng thought for a while and made a decision. How could he let Marshal do the work of entering the tiger's den? His cultivation was higher, so even if he encountered danger, he would have the power to protect himself or even escape. Marshal Zhuozhuo looked at Tang Zheng and finally nodded after a long time. She had also guessed Tang Zheng's thoughts. This was the best choice. But she was still not reconciled. Hatefully glaring at Li Xiaotian, she said, you have ulterior motives, you want to separate us and defeat us one by one. Don't be an idiot, we won't give in that easily. Li Xiaotian laughed and said, whether or not I have ulterior motives, you will know the answer tomorrow. Then we will take our leave, I will come find you tomorrow morning. Tang Zheng prepared to leave. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? We haven't talked enough, the two of you are busy people, this kind of long talk is rare. Forget it. Tang Zheng waved his hand. Li Xiaotian said disappointedly, all right then, I will wait for you at the villa tomorrow morning. Tang Zheng and Marshal quietly left the villa. I don't believe her. In the night, Marshal said resolutely. What? The Marshal Organization and the Li Palace are both mysterious organizations in the world. It is precisely because we understand each other that I will not believe her. The people of the Li Palace have always been meticulous and cunning, deceiving people is a common occurrence, and they are the best at playing people in the palm of their hands. Li Xiaotian is the holy maiden of the Li Palace, and is even more proficient in this field, she is an expert. Marshal analyzed. Tang Zheng seemed to be deep in thought, he couldn't help but recall the first time he met Li Xiaotian. At that time he and Fang Shishir were riding the train to southern Yunnan, and the two of them just happened to be next to each other. Because of her few words, Tang Zheng almost suffered a great loss at the hands of the cold-faced killer and the police. That scene was still fresh in his mind. Wasn't this just playing with people in the palm of their hands? Later on, the two of them experienced many trials and tribulations, but in the end, there was still a huge gap between them, and they did not trust each other very much. Especially after knowing the secret of the Buzhou mountain, Li Xiaotian even had the intention to kill Tang Zheng, and together with the 12 palaces assassins tried to assassinate him in the capital. If not for Yi Dingdang risking her life to save him, he was afraid that he would have already met with misfortune. Therefore, the two of them were actually mortal enemies, and to the words of the enemy, one must indeed selectively believe. Tomorrow I will go to the Imperial Palace, you stay outside to provide support. If you find anything wrong, immediately leave the island nation. Tang Jing solemnly instructed. No. Marshall stubbornly raised his neck. You are alone in the tiger's den, how can I stay out of it? If I find that you are in danger, I will definitely not hesitate to rush in to save you. Tang Jing shook his head and advised, if I can't escape, then you are walking into a trap. This is an unnecessary sacrifice. I am willing. Marshall blurted out. Tang Jing was stunned, and Marshall also immediately realized what she had said, and hurriedly lowered her head. She was about the same height as Tang Jing, so even if she lowered her head, her expression was clearly seen by Tang Jing, and the bashfulness on her face was completely revealed. Tang Jing shook his head, and it was rare to see such an expression on her face. Although it was only a hint of bashfulness, it was even more attractive than Li Xiaoyan's naked body. A warm current flowed through Tang Jing's heart, and he could not help but hold Marshall's hand. Marshall's body slightly stiffened, but she did not struggle. She had already promised to be Tang Jing's person, so she would not resist his actions. Be good, be obedient with me here, everything will be fine. Believe me, they can't kill me, so if you find out that something is wrong, you must immediately leave. I will come find you in the future, remember? Tang Jing's voice suddenly became very gentle. He had never used such a tone to speak to Marshall before. For a moment, Marshall stood in place, not knowing what to do as he nodded his head. This gentleness hit her hard in the heart. She had never thought that she would enjoy this kind of gentleness, no different from an ordinary little girl. A single sentence caused her to panic, and she subconsciously agreed to Tang Jing. As the sky turned white, Tang Jing arrived outside the villa alone under Marshall's gaze. The villa in the morning was exceptionally quiet, as if he had just woken up from his sleep. Hello, are you Miss Li's friend? A person walked over and asked. Tang Jing nodded. This way, please. Miss Li has been waiting for a long time. After walking through a bluestone path, Tang Jing was brought to a garden. The ground was covered with a thin layer of cherry blossom petals. In the garden, cherry blossoms were the most beautiful, and they were exceptionally beautiful. Cherry blossoms were the national flowers of the island nation. Ever since he entered the island nation, Tang Jing had seen a lot of them, but the cherry blossoms in this garden were still as beautiful as ever. Li Xiaotian stood under the cherry blossom tree. The petals drifted down and landed on her head and shoulders like decorations, weakening her cold aura and adding a sense of tranquility and beauty. Hearing the sound of footsteps, Li Xiaotian turned around, smiled at Tang Jing and said, "You're here." Tang Jing nodded his head without batting an eyelid. "Miss Li, can we set off now?" The attendant asked respectfully. "Let's go." The attendant led the way in front, while Tang Jing and Li Xiaotian were a few steps behind. Li Xiaotian asked in a low voice, "Did you sleep well last night?" "Not bad." "Haha, with a beauty accompanying you, it must be a great enjoyment in life." Li Xiaotian intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Tang Jing's lower body and said. This extremely invasive gaze made Tang Jing slightly embarrassed. He simply remained silent and did not say a word. Li Xiaotian seemed to have seen through his thoughts and changed the topic. "Your identity to the outside world is my fellow disciple. You specialize in the art of apricot woods, especially in the area of difficult and complicated diseases. Perhaps the other side will let you personally examine him. You are the master of the king of medicine, so this shouldn't be a problem for you, right? Don't you have a way to save him? What else do you need me to examine?" Tang Jing asked back. Li Xiaotian smiled but did not say a word. Seeing that she was pretending to be mysterious, Tang Jing did not ask any more questions. "In any case, whatever I tell you to do, just do it. You deliberately wanted to sneak into the imperial palace, so you must suspect that the disappearance of Wu Junshan and the others is related to the island nation's imperial family. When the time comes, I will help you indirectly investigate. However, a few days ago the island nation's warship sank. The entire country was greatly shaken by this matter, especially the imperial family, so in a moment, don't do anything too out of line and cause more trouble," Li Xiaotian warned. Tang Jing did not comment. Island nation is really unlucky. In the sea the warship also sank. As for what exactly happened, outsiders have no way of knowing. It is said that at that time, everyone was buried in the sea. Moreover, the investigation of the warship is highly confidential. The Li Palace does not have the ability to gather information from overseas, so they still do not know what exactly happened. Li Xiaotian said to himself. They have done too many bad things. Perhaps this is their punishment. Tang Jing said vaguely. Haha, to make a warship sink without a sound is not something an ordinary person can do. Moreover, there has been no military activity in that area of the sea recently. The neighboring countries have all firmly denied that they have anything to do with the sinking of the ship, so this matter is becoming more and more confusing, Li Xiaotian said as his brows furrowed. It was clear that he was also interested in this matter. Tang Jing lowered his head and pretended that he did not hear anything. Chapter 662. The imperial palace was still tightly guarded, but this time, Tang Jing went straight in, because he was accompanied by Li Xiaotian. After passing through the guards, they entered the true interior of the imperial palace. This was the center of the imperial power of the island nation, representing the inheritance and power of this country for thousands of years. There were many ancient buildings with carved beams and painted rafters, and there were many traces of the ancient buildings of Wuxia. This was the imitation of Wuxia back then. Back then, the Wuxia was the center of power in the world, the most powerful country. However, because the cultivators were expelled and gradually walked down the altar, and after experiencing the torment of the invasion war, they became what they were now. Back then, the island nation was a vassal state of Wuxia, paying tribute every year and sending envoys to learn the culture and technology of Wuxia. But now the island nation no longer put Wuxia in their eyes. This was a sad thing. Tang Jing had mixed feelings. He followed the crowd through the layers of buildings without saying a word, and arrived in front of a magnificent palace. This palace was one size smaller than the palace in Wuxia's imperial city. It was one grade lower, but one could still see its grandeur and magnificence. In front of the palace, the guards had become even tighter. With a combination of light and darkness, Tang Jing's consciousness moved slightly, and discovered that there were many people hiding in the shadows, silently watching him. Although Li Xiaotian was treated as a guest of honor, this group of island nation people obviously did not completely believe her. This was in line with Li Xiaotian's description. Suddenly, Tang Jing and Li Xiaotian were stopped, and Tang Jing squinted his eyes. Li Xiaotian's expression did not change as he said, "Don't worry, they're just checking if there are any weapons. You don't have to worry about that." Li Xiaotian knew that Tang Jing had a summer bag, and there were too many divine weapons inside. The heaven-shocking bow and shooting sun arrows that she had coveted for a long time were one of them. The characteristics of the Sumeru pouch were special. Island nation people could not detect it at all. Sure enough, after the island nation people checked, they bowed deeply to the two of them and respectfully let them pass. "Yesterday I did not come to this palace. Since I am here today, I will definitely be able to see the emperor," Li Xiaotian said in a low voice. Tang Jing nodded, thinking that it would be for the best. In fact, he had not completely thought of a countermeasure for what he should do this time. The matter of the warship attacking the island was an order from the royal family, so it was difficult for the emperor to absolve himself from the blame. Perhaps only he knew what was going on. Even if Wu Junshan and the others were captured, he should know where they were being held. Therefore, this act of entering the tiger's den alone was a last resort, but a very necessary method. Although the island country was a small country, the country was too small, and the development of these years was seriously lagging behind, but the other party was after all a country, and with the strength of a single person against the strength of a country, even if Tang Jing was arrogant, he would not be crazy enough to think that he could do whatever he wanted. Without a doubt, if they captured the Sky Emperor alive, everything would be revealed. However, under these heavy guards, it was still unknown whether they would succeed or not. If they were to alert the enemy, it would be even more difficult to find out the whereabouts of Wu Junshan and the others from the royal family in the future. In short, he was caught in a dilemma. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. I will act according to the situation. Tang Jing silently thought in his heart. Li Xiaotian looked at him meaningfully and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "Nothing." Tang Jing was shocked. There was still this black-bellied woman beside him. She was very good at reading people's expressions. If there was anything strange about his every move, she would be able to sense it. Even if he were to make a move later, he could not let her discover it in advance. Otherwise, as long as she shouted, all his previous efforts would be for naught. Li Xiaotian heard the answer, laughed, and did not say anything more. The majestic aura in the palace was even stronger. If an ordinary person were to walk into this palace, they would probably be unable to help but tremble in fear. They would unconsciously feel guilty and lower their posture. However, Tang Jing did not feel anything strange. The dragon might of the five-clawed golden dragon was many times stronger than this aura. He could already talk and laugh when facing the five-clawed golden dragon, so why would he be afraid of this palace? Moreover, his body also contained the might of a dragon. If he did not intentionally restrain it and let it out, it would definitely cause many people to tremble in fear. Inside the palace, the number of guards in the open had decreased by a lot, but Tang Jing could clearly feel that the number of guards in the dark had increased. Furthermore, their strength had increased, and he could feel a few powerful auras faintly discernible. If not for his extraordinary perception, he probably would not have discovered the experts in the dark. This imperial palace was indeed a dragon's pool and tiger's den. The defense of the entire country could not be underestimated. Looking up, there was a middle-aged man sitting on the throne of the palace. This person was not tall, but there was a dignified aura between his brows. With a single glance, one could tell that he was not an ordinary person. Could this person be the Heavenly Emperor? Tang Jing could not help but take a few more glances. Suddenly, his gaze turned and landed on the throne beneath the other party. The throne's shape was very unique. Pieces of scales wrapped around the throne, and it was as black as ink. However, the strangest thing was the shape of the throne. 9 ferocious dragon heads stretched out in all directions, giving off a strong sense of oppression and fear. Tang Jing had seen a true dragon before. The 5-clawed golden dragon did not give off a ferocious feeling. Instead, it gave off a brilliant sense of majesty. However, these 9 dragon heads were completely different. In addition to the sense of majesty, they gave off an even more ferocious feeling, giving off a very uncomfortable feeling. This was very different from the design of Wuxia's dragon throne. For a moment, Tang Jing could not understand the use of this design. However, because of this throne, he instantly did not have a good impression of the person sitting on it. Not only that, a strong sense of disgust and hostility rose from the bottom of his heart. He hid these emotions very well. The others could not detect the slightest trace of them. Otherwise, if he showed even the slightest trace of hostility, the experts lying in ambush would attack together. Li Xiaotian looked expressionlessly at the middle-aged man on the throne. He was neither servile nor overbearing and did not say a word. Suddenly the palace fell into silence. Their eyes met as if they were waiting for the other to break the silence first. Li Xiaotian was calm and composed. He did not have the slightest fear or unease of being in the middle of the imperial palace. On the contrary, he looked around with interest. The atmosphere became increasingly strange and awkward. Tang Jing could not understand the thoughts of Li Xiaotian and the emperor, nor could he understand why the two of them had such a reaction. After a long time, the emperor finally opened his mouth. "Holy Maiden of the Li Palace, welcome." It was actually Wuxia language. Tang Jing was slightly surprised, but Li Xiaotian was not at all surprised. The island nation had not only studied Wuxia for a year or so, but had studied it for over 1,000 years. Many of the island nation's languages came from Wuxia, and the heir apparent of the island nation's imperial family would learn Wuxia language from a young age. Li Xiaotian indifferently said, "Your Majesty, hello. Let's get straight to the point and get to the main topic." The emperor frowned. "There's no rush. I'm very anxious." Li Xiaotian objected. It had to be said that this conversation caused Tang Jing to have a whole new level of respect for Li Xiaotian. She came to the depths of the palace alone, surrounded by strong enemies, yet she was able to remain calm and composed, and even refuted the Sky Emperor's opinion. This was too rare and commendable. The emperor's brows furrowed even tighter. Between his brows, there was no doubt that he was unhappy. Li Xiaotian acted as if he did not see it and ignored it. "Fine, then let's begin." The emperor compromised. "This is our Li Palace's sacred hand of Xing Lin. He will diagnose you." Li Xiaotian pointed at Tang Jing and introduced him. The emperor's gaze moved to Tang Jing's body. "Since you are the sacred hand of Xing Lin, may I ask your name?" "A nameless person." Tang Jing had crossed swords with the people of the island nation too many times. He was not sure if his name had already been known by the people of the island nation, so he deliberately concealed his name. "Your Majesty, a name is just a code name. Why would a true expert use a name to display their strength?" Li Xiaotian tried to resolve the situation. The emperor gave Tang Jing a deep look, tacitly agreeing with this explanation. "Then please come forward." The emperor compromised. Tang Jing did not know what kind of illness the emperor was suffering from. His medical skills were only half-baked and he had not even learned the most basic medical knowledge. The life-continuing pill was a heaven-defying pill that did not belong in the scope of medical knowledge. But since things had already gotten to this point, he had no way out. Moreover, the chances of approaching the emperor were few and far between. This was the best opportunity. Take this opportunity to capture him alive, then everything will come to light. Tang Jing thought. A distance of 10 meters was not long, but it was not short either. But in this hall, this distance was filled with danger. Tang Jing could feel that the auras of the experts in the dark had firmly locked onto him. As long as he made the slightest movement, they would definitely kill him. Your Majesty, I have a few questions to ask. Li Xiaotian suddenly spoke again. The emperor's attention was immediately diverted. He looked at Li Xiaotian and asked, "What questions?" "The news of the sinking of your country's warship has spread like wildfire. I wonder if there are any results from the investigation?" The emperor's eyelids suddenly twitched. His gaze became exceptionally sharp, like a sharp knife. Tang Jing's heart thumped. What was the purpose of this woman asking this question? On this matter, the island nation was humiliated. This was definitely an opportunity for the emperor. To directly mention this matter, wasn't this just rubbing salt on the wound and increasing the hostility? He could not guess what Li Xiaotian was thinking, but he could not turn around to stop her. He could only bite the bullet and walk towards the emperor. He raised his head and looked at the emperor, not knowing how he would answer. A trace of anger flashed past the emperor's eyes as he said, "This is a matter of the country. It is not convenient to tell you." Is that so? But I know a bit of news. I wonder if your Majesty wants to know?" Li Xiaotian said with a smile. The moment these words were spoken, the atmosphere in the hall changed. The emperor leaned forward and asked, "What news?" Tang Jing's heart fiercely beat. He could feel Li Xiaotian's gaze on his back. It was meaningful and made him feel uneasy. This woman's style of doing things was unfathomable. At this time, what was the purpose of her words? Shit. Tang Jing secretly cried out as his expression changed. Chapter 663. All of this happened so quickly that Tang Jing had no time to react. There was a wolf in front of him and a tiger behind him. He was in a dilemma. He glanced at the emperor, but his attention was still on Li Xiaotian. He really wanted to know the news that she spoke of. Li Xiaotian glanced at Tang Jing and said, "Your country's warship sank because someone deliberately sabotaged it." The emperor's eyelids suddenly twitched. This was consistent with the results of their investigation. The large hole on the warship and the traces of battle showed that this was not caused by an explosion. It was caused by manpower and divine weapons. This result caused the royal family to be greatly shocked. A single person with such powerful strength was enough to sink a warship. This was too terrifying. Of course, no one would question this result. The royal family had been around for thousands of years, and they had seen too many miracles. It was not just a legend for an individual to be stronger than this. Therefore, the most important thing now was to find this person. Time was of the essence, and the investigation had yet to conclude. However, Li Xiaotian claimed that he had news, which made the emperor's expression change. Li Xiaotian was like a fisherman throwing down bait to lure the emperor. The emperor had no choice but to take the bait. He was too anxious to know about this matter. Is identical to. Who is it? Far away on the horizon, but close at hand. Li Xiaotian's words were earth-shattering. So far away yet so close. The emperor glanced at Li Xiaotian and immediately rejected the idea that she was the culprit. His gaze then turned and locked onto Tang Jing. Other than Li Xiaotian, there was only one other person in the hall, Tang Jing. Although the emperor did not understand why Li Xiaotian would betray his companions, he still made a prompt decision. The heavenly emperor's gaze became incomparably cold, like a venomous snake spitting out its tongue. He stared straight at Tang Jing and roared, "It's you? Catch him." As soon as his voice fell, figures leapt out from all directions of the hall, madly pouncing towards Tang Jing. Tang Jing cursed in his heart. This two-faced woman, he almost believed her, but he didn't expect that all of this was a trap. She knew that she was no match for Tang Jing, so she pretended to be weak. Then she lured Tang Jing into the depths of the palace. Facing so many experts from the island nation, Tang Jing would not be able to escape. In the blink of an eye, Tang Jing thought of this and his face turned ashen. With so many experts surrounding him, Tang Jing didn't have time to think. He immediately used ground shrink, and the distance of a few meters was reduced to 0. He dodged the attacks of the others and directly arrived in front of the emperor. Waka. Roars and roars resounded throughout the hall as beams of cold light shot towards Tang Zheng's body. Tang Zheng didn't care. He knew that at this critical moment, if he didn't catch the Sky Emperor, then he would be trapped in an army of tens of thousands. All of this happened in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. A faint smile appeared on Li Xiaoyan's face as she calmly watched the scene. All of this was her masterpiece, and she was the one who caused Tang Zheng to fall into such a desperate situation. Tang Zheng, will you be able to escape unscathed this time? She muttered to herself. Her face revealed a trace of excitement, as if she really wanted to know the answer to this question. Would Tang Zheng be able to escape unscathed? He didn't know, and he didn't have time to think about it. He could clearly feel the monstrous killing intent behind him, as if it was going to tear him apart. He knew that his previous feeling was correct. There were indeed experts among these ambushers, and at least one of them was an expert of the evolved Jing stage. Tang Zheng had dealt with evolved Jing stage experts too many times, so when the other party made a move he could tell. This was one disaster after another. He had to stake it all on this. He didn't even turn his head. His speed was even faster as he attacked the Sky Emperor with lightning speed. The Sky Emperor retreated in panic, but he was sitting on the throne and had no way to retreat. Tang Zheng's hand grabbed the Sky Emperor's neck. With a flip of his hand, the Sky Emperor was lifted up from the throne and blocked in front of Tang Zheng, becoming his human shield. Baka. The experts all cursed and retreated. A few of them couldn't retreat in time and almost stabbed their weapons into the Sky Emperor's chest. Tang Zheng was like a killing god. His entire body was releasing a dense killing intent. His eyes were wide open as he stared angrily and shouted, "Retreat or I'll kill him immediately." With the Sky Emperor in his hand, Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. If he didn't make a prompt decision to not retreat and capture the Sky Emperor as a hostage, he would have fallen into a chaotic battle. The Sky Emperor's expression changed as he roared, "How dare you, you actually dare to capture me?" Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a fierce light as he slapped his face and said, "Now you are my captive. Without my orders you are not allowed to speak. Otherwise I will make your face swell up like a pig's head." Everyone was stunned as they looked at the Sky Emperor who had a clear handprint on his face. They felt that everything was too unreal, like it was a dream. As the ruler of a country, he was actually captured by an outsider in his own palace and humiliated in front of his own people. This was simply a huge humiliation. The Sky Emperor was stunned and didn't come back to his senses. After a while he started to shout. This time he didn't use the Wuxia language but the island nation language. On the verge of collapse, he finally subconsciously chose his mother tongue. Tang Zheng didn't understand what he was saying, but it definitely wasn't anything good. Since he didn't listen, then there was no need to be polite with him. Tang Zheng originally didn't have any respect for the Sky Emperor. Instead he was filled with enmity. Since there was such a heaven-sent opportunity, then wouldn't it be a waste if he didn't punish him? Moreover, the island nation and Wuxia were old enemies. If he slapped the Sky Emperor a few more times, then he would get back some interest from the invasion of the past. He suddenly had an idea. If there was a reporter who recorded this scene and spread it around the world, then the effect would be even better. The island nation's fate would be completely destroyed. In a short period of time, not only the royal family, but even the people wouldn't be able to raise their heads. Li Xiaoyan's eyes lit up and praised, "What a powerful character. He can often do unexpected things. At this critical moment of life and death, he still did such a shocking thing. If he wasn't a cultivator, I really wouldn't want to spend so much effort to be his enemy." She faintly sighed and thought in her heart, "Unfortunately, his identity as a cultivator is destined to be my enemy. Even the experience of going through thick and thin together in the past can't change all of this." The Sky Emperor stopped his clamor because Tang Zheng gave him a few more slaps on the face. He was about to go crazy. This person's guts were too big. As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. The Sky Emperor was also such a smart person. At this critical moment, provoking the other party was not a wise move. Instead, it would provoke the other party's anger. In the end, the one who would suffer losses was himself. However, he still used his extremely angry eyes to stare at Tang Zheng, as if he wanted to swallow him in one bite. Tang Zheng ignored him and shouted at the crowd, "Back off a little. Don't block the way. Otherwise your Sky Emperor will go to see King Yama." Everyone looked at each other and had no choice but to back off a little. This is a wise move. Who exactly are you? You dare to come to my island nation and stir up trouble? One of the people in the crowd used Wuxia language to ask. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as his gaze locked onto this person. This person's aura was too strong. Tang Zheng could tell at a glance that he was the powerful master-level warrior that he felt. This person should be around 60 years old. He had a white beard under his nose. He wore a set of warrior's clothes and wooden clogs. There was a katana at his waist. His gaze was gloomy and his aura was terrifying. Who I am is not important. What is important is that you must honestly tell me what I want to know. Otherwise, even if I die, I will drag your Sky Emperor down with me. Tang Zheng said fearlessly. In the midst of tens of thousands of soldiers, he was calm and composed. This calm and composed demeanor of a great general was impressive. However, the people of the island nation only felt fear and anger. Where did this freak come from? Many people subconsciously looked at Li Xiaotian. Wasn't this person brought by him? Could it be that these two people were in cahoots with each other? Many people of the island nation had already taken small steps and surrounded Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian did not retreat an inch and said indifferently, "You have found the wrong target to deal with me. Your enemy is him. As for his name, I can make it big for you. He is called Tang Zheng. I think you are not too unfamiliar with this name. However, many experts of your country have fallen in his hands." Li Xiaotian really sold out Tang Zheng completely. Back in the 100,000 Mountains, Tang Zheng had killed many experts of the island nation. Li Xiaotian knew very well that Li Xiaotian knew the feud between him and the island nation. "You are Tang Zheng." As expected, the Sky Emperor and the great master martial artist cried out in alarm at the same time. It was obvious that they were not unfamiliar with this name. The island nation had always paid attention to the collection of information about Wuxia. How could they not know about this new rising star of Wuxia? As for what happened in the 100,000 Mountains, they were not too clear about it. This was because Tang Zheng had done it very cleanly. No one came back to report, so the people of the island nation did not know that all of this was related to Tang Zheng. Seeing that his identity had been exposed, Tang Zheng was angry and regretful. He had been possessed and actually believed in Li Xiaotian. Could this woman's words be trusted? Now you know that you have been tricked. You are in a desperate situation. You are probably going to die. Seeing Tang Zheng fiercely staring at him, Li Xiaotian met his gaze and charmingly smiled, saying, "Tang Zheng, don't blame me." Tang Zheng coldly snorted and cursed in his heart, "It would be strange if I don't blame you. I still want to kill you. If you fall into my hands in the future, I will definitely not be merciful. Even if you have a glib tongue, don't think that I will believe you." But it was too late to think about all this now. The most important thing was to solve the problem in front of him. Since that was the case, then Tang Zheng had nothing to hide. The fingers that were grabbing the Sky Emperor's neck tightened. The Sky Emperor gasped for breath and almost suffocated. Chapter 664. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. No one doubted the truth of his words. This person was extremely daring. There was probably nothing in this world that he did not dare to do. No one dared to use the Emperor's life to test his courage. "All right, we will answer truthfully. Don't hurt His Majesty the Emperor." The martial artist said. "Why did your warship attack that island?" Tang Zheng asked. "Are you here for this matter?" "I'm the one asking you, not you." Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows and said unhappily. The martial artist was shocked and quickly advised, "Don't hurt His Majesty, I'll answer you. Because the intelligence shows that there are people on that island who are a serious threat to the safety of our country." Information. Tang Zheng was extremely suspicious. Where did the information come from? "This is a secret, I don't know either." Tang Zheng laughed coldly. "Hee, is that so? Since you are unable to give me an answer, then as the ruler of a country you should know, right?" As he spoke, he lifted the Emperor up. Whoa! The Emperor immediately let out a suffocating whimper, his face turning purple-red. "You will tell me, right?" Tang Zheng asked with a smile. The Emperor nodded with difficulty. "Only then can I save my life." Tang Zheng smiled in satisfaction and put down the Emperor. The Emperor greedily gasped for breath and said with fear, "This is what the Imperial Advisor told me." "Imperial Advisor? Who is the Imperial Advisor?" Tang Zheng asked puzzledly. "You are a foreigner, of course you don't know the Imperial Advisor. The Imperial Advisor is the person with the highest cultivation in our country." The Emperor said with some pride. It was enough to make the ruler of a country proud. This showed how powerful the Imperial Advisor was. Although the island nation was a small country, it was still a country after all. The Imperial Advisor was definitely not an ordinary person. "How did he know that there are people on that island who threaten your country?" Tang Jing asked. According to what Marshall said, the whereabouts of Wu Junshan and the others were extremely secretive. Furthermore, they were in the vast ocean and would not be easily exposed. How did the imperial advisor know? The more questions Tang Jing had, the more he felt that this matter was confusing. Hearing this, the heavenly emperor shook his head with difficulty. I don't know either. How could Tang Jing believe him? He said angrily, you're the ruler of a country, yet you don't know anything. Are you a good-for-nothing? Anger appeared on the emperor's face, but he didn't dare to say anything. He said, I have never doubted the imperial preceptor. If he doesn't tell me, of course I won't know. Tang Jing looked at him suspiciously, but couldn't find any clues after a long time, so he said, then quickly call the state preceptor and ask him where he got this information. The state preceptor's residence doesn't have a phone, so we can't contact him. *CK. Tang Jing really wanted to curse. What kind of society is this? Why are you still so antique? Since that's the case, then you can only blame your bad luck. Tang Jing fiercely said. What do you want to do? The heavenly emperor panicked. Tell your men to send a message to that nuisance state preceptor. Find out what happened and then come back to ransom him. You want to kidnap his majesty? When everyone heard this, they were both shocked and angry. This person's guts were bigger than the heavens. The kidnapping of a country's ruler would definitely cause a huge uproar. At that time, the entire country would lose face and the royal family would be criticized by the people. All in all, there would be a lot of negative effects. No, don't even think about leaving the imperial palace today. The martial scholar angrily objected. Tang Jing laughed in disdain. If you don't want me to leave, then let him accompany me in death. You? Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Move aside. Tang Jing held the emperor and moved forward step by step, forcing everyone to retreat. Li Xiaoyan's eyes flashed as he fanned the flames. You're just going to let him take the emperor away like this? You brought him here, so you can't absolve yourself from the blame. Catch her. Hearing this, the Grand Master martial artist squinted at Li Xiaotian and ordered. Everyone quickly surrounded her, but Li Xiaotian was calm and collected. She crossed her arms as if she didn't find the danger at all. He looked at the emperor with a smile that wasn't a smile. The emperor glanced at Li Xiaotian and yelled, Stop! You're not allowed to hurt her. Your Majesty, they are in cahoots, the martial master reminded him bitterly. Shut up. Pass down my order. You're not allowed to be rude to Miss Li, the emperor gnashed his teeth and ordered. Everyone looked at each other. Although they had no idea why the emperor would give such an order, they could only obey unconditionally. Tang Jing looked at Li Xiaotian with a meaningful gaze. You're so good to her. What's the relationship between the two of you? What do you think? Li Xiaotian chuckled. Li Xiaotian, I've taken a tumble for trusting you. I'll remember this. I'll learn from my mistakes. I'll settle this debt with you in the future. Tang Jing coldly said. You want to settle the debt with me? Do you think you still have the chance? I have the emperor in my hands. Do you want him to die? Li Xiaotian walked towards Tang Jing and said, To others he's the ruler of a country. But to me you're my main target. Everyone else has to take a step back. Miss Li, stop. The martial scholar immediately stopped Li Xiaotian. The emperor is our emperor. I won't let anyone endanger his life. Li Xiaotian indifferently said, His life is already in danger. So you've already failed in your duty. The martial scholar thought in his heart, Isn't it because you brought Tang Jing's men? Otherwise, how could there be such a huge mess? You really want to kill me? Seeing Li Xiaotian's resolute attitude, Tang Jing asked. Of course, cultivators are really a headache. Li Xiaotian rubbed her forehead, faintly sighed and said with a headache. Then the next time we meet, I won't show any mercy. Tang Jing said without any trace of politeness. I don't think there'll be a next time. Li Xiaotian was filled with confidence. Since all of this is a trap set by you, does that mean that treating the emperor's illness is also a lie? If you're really scheming. Using the emperor's illness to lower my guard. Tang Jing laughed at himself, he was truly too foolish and naive. Back then he had thought that if he could find out what kind of hidden illness the Sky Emperor had, then it would be a serious blow to the island. It turned out that it was all his wishful thinking. Li Xiaotian smiled as he shook his head. No, you're wrong. I didn't lie to you about this. The emperor is indeed sick and it's a hidden illness. Am I right, your majesty? An awkward expression flashed across the emperor's face, but he did not deny it. Tang Jing deeply looked at him. From his expression, He could tell that this matter was most likely true. Li Xiaotian, you're simply too good at lying. 70% is fake and 30% is true. It's impossible to tell. Tang Jing hatefully said as he finally recognized this woman. She was black-bellied to the extreme, just like a beautiful snake. She had a strong camouflage ability, and if one was not careful they would be bitten to death. Li Xiaotian did not mind and smiled. Many thanks for the praise. I accept this evaluation. He suddenly changed the topic and said, everyone, if His Majesty is kidnapped, then you've failed in your duty. Do you think you have a chance to live? Everyone immediately understood the meaning behind his words. If the ruler of a country was kidnapped right in front of their eyes, then it would be their negligence. This was different from other crimes. This was a death sentence. If they forcefully attacked to save the emperor and something happened to him, then they would also be sentenced to death. If they attacked, they would die. If they retreated, then they would also die. Since the result was the same, then they would naturally choose to fight. What if they managed to save the emperor? No one had thought of this point before. Li Xiaotian had pointed out the mystery in one sentence. It could be said that he had put in a lot of thought into this and was also abnormally ruthless. Tang Jing's head thumped as he immediately understood this point. He secretly cursed at the ruthless woman, and his hand that was grabbing onto the emperor's neck tightened. Right now, the chances of him using the emperor as a hostage to escape were very slim. What followed was a tough battle. Since it was an unavoidable tough battle, then Tang Jing would naturally not give up on the emperor. Not only could he be a human shield, if he was lucky enough to kidnap him, then he would be of great use. Looks like you've already made your choice. Since that's the case, gentlemen, there's no need to delay any longer. After Li Xiaotian finished speaking, he took a step back. She understood how powerful Tang Jing was. Since there were so many cannon fodder attacking, then she should retreat a little in case Tang Jing suddenly went berserk and put her in danger. Every step she took was carefully calculated. It could be said that she had put in a lot of thought into it, and her thoughts could be said to be extremely meticulous. It was indeed not an easy thing to make an enemy out of such a person. The martial scholar's eyes became exceptionally sharp as he walked towards Tang Jing step by step. The others surrounded Tang Jing, and in an instant, not even a drop of water could leak out. He was like a small boat in the middle of a vast ocean. Whether or not he would be able to withstand this great storm was unknown. Suddenly, the great master martial scholar shouted in the language of the island nation, and everyone attacked at the same time. The large group of people were like ants wanting to bite Tang Jing to death. Tang Jing did not say a word. The war soul sword was already in his hand. The long sword quickly pointed out. A person was unable to dodge and was directly pierced through the chest. Li Xiaotian's eyes flashed as she stared fixedly at the war soul sword. Especially the speed, trajectory and technique of Tang Jing's sword, it caused her to be shocked. She had never seen such a sword technique before. Fast, ruthless, accurate. The essence of these sword techniques was displayed to the fullest extent. This set of sword techniques was completely straightforward, not beating around the bush and not even the slightest bit of fancy movements. When did he learn such a strange sword technique? The cold light in Li Xiaotian's eyes caused people to feel even more terrified. This kind of guy who had always been unexpected, if he continued to live, then in the future he would create even more miracles. No matter what, we must succeed this time. Chapter 665. This set of sword techniques that caused Li Xiaotian to turn pale with fright was of course the wind-chasing sword technique. The essence of the wind-chasing sword technique lay in its exquisite sword moves that did not even consume innate qi. Tang Jing knew that he was facing a fierce battle and would consume a lot of energy. By using the wind-chasing sword technique, he could reduce the consumption of innate qi and obtain more advantages for himself. The essence of the wind-chasing sword technique was fully displayed by Tang Jing. In the blink of an eye, 5 or 6 people had fallen under his war soul sword. Immediately, everyone felt as if they were facing a great enemy. They had never seen such an exquisite sword technique before. However, no one retreated. Instead, they charged forward wave after wave as if they did not care about their lives. Tang Jing was methodical. As he attacked, he grabbed the Sky Emperor and walked towards the entrance of the main hall. That great master has not made a move yet. These people are at most pre-celestial stage warriors, so they can't do anything to me. The key is that great master is the biggest threat. Tang Jing thought silently. His gaze swept across. Why did he not see any trace of that great master warrior? Tang Jing was overwhelmed with shock. His gaze was like a scanner as it swept across the place once again. There was still no trace of that person. Something's wrong. He became alarmed and had a strong sense of unease. At this time the great master would not run away. There must be something wrong if he suddenly disappeared. A few enemies attacked again. Tang Jing did the same thing and waved his War Soul Sword to block. Block. The War Soul Sword collided with a person's katana. The huge recoil caused his arm to go numb. Before he could understand what was going on, the katana was like a poisonous snake, rushing straight in and slashing at his shoulder, almost piercing through his chest. Tang Jing's eyes instantly widened. This slash was too unexpected. He did not take it seriously at first, but he did not expect it to be so powerful. He immediately locked onto his opponent. It was a young man with a strange smile on his face. The other party was so young, how could he be so strong? This attack was comparable to the attack of a great master warrior. Tang Jing's eyes glowed. He endured the pain from his shoulder and held the emperor even tighter. Obviously, the other party's intention was to make him let go, but he didn't do as the other party wished. The other party seemed to have realized that his plan had failed, but he was not discouraged. He raised his hand and slashed down with his blade, preparing to launch another attack. Don't even think about it. Tang Jing roared. He had just been tricked by him, so how could he make the same mistake again? The War Soul Sword struck out like lightning. This strike was not the wind-chasing sword technique, but the flying immortals from heaven. With the support of the innate chi, the power of the War Soul Sword increased greatly. The terrifying pressure caused everyone to feel a strong pressure, and their movements involuntarily became slower. However, the young man wasn't affected too much. His expression only became serious. With a low roar, a faint light appeared on his katana. Saber light. This person's saber technique had actually been trained to such a high level, to the point of being able to refine a saber light. This was a realm that many warriors dreamed of. Tang Jing didn't even need to look to determine that the other party was in the Great Master realm, but why didn't he notice such a powerful expert just now? Could it be that his ability to conceal his aura was also top-notch? He didn't have time to think about it carefully as the War Soul Sword and the katana collided once again. The intense sparks and terrifying aura caused the two of them to involuntarily take a few steps back. Their eyes met and they could see the shock in each other's eyes. You're so young, why are you so powerful? The other party's voice was very low, like a black cloud pressing down on his head, making him feel very uncomfortable. Tang Jing's heart moved. This voice was too familiar. Wasn't this the voice of the old man in the Great Master realm? It's you. So you changed your appearance? Tang Jing suddenly realized. When he was in the northeast mountain forest, he met a ninja who knew genjutsu. This person was definitely a ninja and could use some genjutsu to confuse people. He didn't notice that he was mixed in with the crowd. If his luck wasn't good enough, he would definitely have fallen into his hands. How sinister, Tang Jing said coldly. When the other party realized that his identity had been seen through, his face fluctuated, and in the next second he returned to his original appearance. You were lucky just now, but you won't be so lucky next time. The person sneered and retreated. The others quickly moved forward and surrounded him, causing him to disappear into the crowd. Tang Jing secretly cursed. This person used ninjutsu again, changed his appearance and hid in the crowd, waiting for an opportunity to sneak attack. Damn shameless enough. Since it's like this, then don't blame me. Tang Jing originally wanted to rely on his own strength to charge out, but now all of this had become unrealistic. He could already see from afar that there were many people gathered outside the hall, a sea of people. It could be said that it was too difficult for him to escape from such a sea of people. The others didn't know what he meant and once again rushed over crazily. Boom. With a loud sound, a huge monster suddenly appeared in the hall. The floor directly shattered under its feet and flew in all directions, hitting many people, causing them to scream and fall to the ground. Everyone was dumbfounded as they raised their heads to look at this gigantic creature. What was this thing? Why did it suddenly appear here as if it had fallen from the sky? Li Xiaotian stood at the periphery with a shocked expression on her face. She muttered, I almost forgot that he still has the help of the four symbols venerable. However, even though it's big enough, it's still a conspicuous target. It won't be that easy to escape. As soon as the four symbols venerable appeared, the situation of the battle immediately changed. Tang Jing leaped, jumping onto the body of the four symbols venerable, and then disappeared into his chest. He had already killed the Mikado and thrown him aside, and he wholeheartedly controlled the four symbols venerable. This four symbols venerable was the combination of four symbols venerable, and its power was more powerful than the previous four symbols venerable alone. Both its attack power and resistance were significantly higher. It was all thanks to the four symbols venerable that he was able to escape from the world of spirits and souls unscathed. If he could escape from such a dangerous world of spirits and souls, then escaping from the Kokyo should not be a problem. Tang Jing was very confident. However, he had no choice but to use the four symbols venerables. The four symbols venerables had always been his final line of defense. He was unwilling to use them unless it was a matter of life and death. Especially when he was under the gazes of so many people. Such a commotion was too great and too eye-catching. Tang Jing controlled the four symbols venerable. His head had already passed through the roof of the hall, and he had a panoramic view of the Kokyo. Countless reinforcements were coming from all directions. Not only were there warriors but there were also modern soldiers all armed to the teeth. We can't stay here for long. Let's leave first. Boom, boom, boom. The four symbols venerable strode out of the hall. Immediately, the hall was reduced to rubble under the four symbols venerable's feet. The ancient building that had stood there for hundreds and thousands of years was destroyed just like that. Some people who didn't know what was good for them charged over. All sorts of weapons were thrown at the four symbols venerables, but they only caused sparks. The four symbols venerables remained unscathed. Every time the four symbols venerables kicked out, someone would be smashed to pieces. Screams were heard everywhere, and the situation took a turn for the worse. The side that had the advantage in numbers was now the weak side. Before the four symbols venerable, they were like chickens, unable to withstand a single blow. Clang. With a single punch, Tang Jing tore down the door of the main hall. He barged his way through and violently rushed to the plaza in front of the main hall, causing everything to become spacious. Don't let him kidnap the Mikado. Stop him. The Grandmaster Warrior reverted to his original appearance. He emerged from the crowd and shouted hysterically in the island nation's language. At the same time, he soared into the air like a bird and attacked the four symbols venerable. The katana shone brightly under the sun, reflecting the sun's rays. A terrifying pressure covered the sky and covered the earth. Tang Jing locked onto the opponent and snorted. I let you escape just now. Now that you have nowhere to hide, let's see how you're going to escape. With a thought, the four symbols venerable's giant hand reached forward. The giant hand firmly grasped the katana, and the dazzling light immediately disappeared without a trace. The Grandmaster Warrior was shocked. He wanted to pull the katana back but found that he couldn't move it at all. He immediately had an ominous premonition. He threw away the katana and flew back. It had to be known that back then, a single four symbols venerable one was enough to contend against a great master martial artist. Now that there were four symbols venerable one combined, its power would naturally increase greatly. Moreover, Tang Jing's control over the four symbols venerable one had already reached the point of perfection, allowing the four symbols venerable one's power to be displayed to the extreme. Want to escape? No way. Crack. The katana was crushed into pieces by the giant hand. Then, with a wave of the hand, the pieces flew all over the sky like hidden weapons, heading straight for the Grandmaster Warrior's back. The Grandmaster Warrior turned pale with fright. He knew how dangerous it was behind him without even turning his head. He could only desperately circulate his power in an attempt to dodge the attack. Poof. He dodged most of the pieces, but eventually, a piece shot into his back and came out of his abdomen, bringing with it a mist of blood. He staggered and fell from the sky. He couldn't help but let out a scream. Stay here. Tang Jing roared. He waved his giant hand and caught the Grandmaster in midair. When the Grandmaster fell into his palm, he bounced off the ground and jumped out. Tang Jing wouldn't let him do as he wished. He closed his fingers and immediately surrounded the Grandmaster, holding him tightly in his palm. Don't you know ninjutsu and take advantage of the situation? Let's see how you're going to escape like this. Tang Jing mocked him. He knew very well what a Grandmaster Warrior meant to a small island nation. It was already difficult for Wuxia to cultivate a Grandmaster Warrior, let alone an island nation. This was also why there was only one Grandmaster Warrior in the huge palace. It was because they were so rare that they could be called national treasures. The national treasure of an island nation was Tang Jing's enemy. Therefore he didn't pity them at all. He only had one thought: destroy them. Chapter 666. The others were dumbstruck as they watched the scene unfold. A master-level martial artist was killed just like that. That was a clean death. While the other party was in a daze, the Four Symbols Knight took huge strides and ran out of the Kokyo. The palaces and buildings along the way were reduced to dust. No one dared to go up and stop the Four Symbols Knight because they knew very well that it would be akin to a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Li Xiaotian looked at the Four Symbols Knight running out with a complicated expression. However, there was no despair on her face. Instead, she wore a ruthless expression as she muttered to herself, "Do you really think you can leave so easily? You've underestimated the power of a country." As if to prove what she said, a sharp sound of something tearing through the air was heard as soon as she finished speaking. Tang Zheng was immediately alerted when he heard the sound. He quickly turned his head to look. F***CK. A missile spewing flames was heading straight for him. He could not help but stare blankly. That was no ordinary missile. Furthermore, it was at such a close distance. He was in for a big deal. Boom. The Four Symbols Knight stomped hard with the tip of its foot. A building was reduced to rubble again. The Four Symbols Knight used the powerful recoil to rise into the air. The missile flew past the Four Symbols Knight's feet. The Four Symbols Knight landed heavily, kicking up a cloud of dust. Before Tang Zheng could breathe a sigh of relief, the missile took a huge turn in the air and flew back at him. He was stunned for a moment and felt like cursing. The missile had obviously locked onto him. Even though he had dodged it, the missile did not explode. Instead, it turned around and chased after him. He wanted to cry but had no tears. The Kokyo was not as simple as he thought. There was actually a missile defense system. The Four Symbols Knight was the best target. However, he would not sit and wait for death. That was not his style. Seeing that the missile was getting closer, the Four Symbols Knight stomped hard on the ground, sending huge rocks flying. It then swept its leg across. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of something tearing through the air was like rain hitting a banana leaf, resounding throughout the sky. The rocks formed a huge net that the missile could not penetrate. Boom. With a loud bang, a flame soared in the air. The earth seemed to tremble, and the deafening explosion made the people on the ground unable to stand steadily. Everyone swayed left and right, but their gazes never left the Four Symbols Venerable. The series of attacks and counterattacks had left a deep impression on them. When they saw the missiles earlier, many people were overjoyed. They thought that the battle was over and that there were no more variables. After all, everyone knew the power of the missiles. But reality proved that everyone was too optimistic. The missile was very powerful, but this big guy was not to be trifled with. It easily dodged the missile attack and even detonated the missile, causing it to lose its power. Before Tang Zheng could rejoice, he heard the sharp sound of something breaking through the air again. This time it was not one missile but three. Tang Zheng really wanted to say, "Thank you for thinking so highly of me to actually launch 3 missiles at once." This made things even more difficult. Tang Zheng ran. The Four Symbols Venerable's huge body ran for a long distance in the Kokyo. Everyone dodged, leaving a mess along the way. The Kokyo was completely destroyed because of this. He wondered how much the people of the island nation and the royal family would feel. In any case, Tang Zheng did not feel bad at all. With the missiles chasing after him, he could not care less. Moreover, the more the people of the island nation felt bad, the happier he was. The more he destroyed, the better. The 3 missiles were faster than the Four Symbols Venerable. In the blink of an eye, they were right behind the Four Symbols Venerable. The Four Symbols Venerable took to the air again. Its huge body flipped nimbly in the air, dodging 2 more missiles. Suddenly, Tang Zheng screamed, as the 3rd missile changed its trajectory midway. He did not have time to dodge and only heard a loud explosion. A huge recoil pushed him forward. The Four Symbols Venerable's huge body fell to the ground with a loud crash, sending dust everywhere. The cheers were thunderous. The others jumped up and down excitedly, screaming in a language they could not understand. With the missiles hitting the big guy, everything was settled. The other party would not be able to escape. Li Xiaotian's brows relaxed, and a smile gradually appeared at the corner of her mouth. She looked at the remaining 2 missiles that turned back in the air. She believed that no matter how powerful the Four Symbols Venerable was, if he was hit by those 2 missiles, he would be badly injured even if he did not die. Then she could really rest easy. Tang Zheng lay in the Four Symbols Venerable's chest in a daze. His qi and blood were in turmoil, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. His body felt like it had been run over by a huge truck. His bones creaked and he could fall apart at any time. He was hit. Those were the words that popped up in his head. D***emenet. Can I still move? He tried to move his arm. Fortunately, he could still lift it. Although his body felt like it was falling apart, it was not, and he still had the ability to move. Suddenly he took a deep breath. His ears pricked up and he looked into the distance. Immediately, his eyes emitted a terrifying gaze. He cursed, F*** again? You're getting excited, aren't you? He did not have time to control the four symbols venerable to turn around. He hugged a pillar beside him and roared, swinging the pillar with force. Whoosh! The pillar swept toward the two missiles with a biting cold wind. Boom! Boom! The pillar hit the missiles and exploded. The powerful shockwave pushed the four symbols venerable back some distance. Tang Jing spat out another mouthful of blood. However, this was much easier than being hit by the two missiles. The others did not expect him to be able to fight back under such circumstances. Even Li Xiaotian could not help but turn pale with fright. She muttered to herself, "Impossible, impossible. He can still fight back." After pausing for a moment, she immediately roared at the crowd. This time she was actually speaking the island nation language. Tang Zheng could not understand what she was saying, but there was no doubt that it was not something good. That was because the island nation people all looked ashamed after hearing this. Then they became abnormally angry and charged toward Tang Zheng as if they had gone mad. They did not care about the great threat of the four symbols venerable at all. Ding! Ding dang! Thousands of weapons and bullets hit the four symbols venerable, but only sparks flew. Tang Jing hid among them and was not harmed by these people. However, this was not a solution. As the saying went, ants eat an elephant. Was this not a very vivid reality? The key was that these ants still had a weapon of mass destruction. The missiles could be fired at any time. When that happened, Tang Jing would be in big trouble. No, I have to leave this place. Tang Jing gritted his teeth and stood up. However, the four symbols venerable did not stand up. Crap, the four symbols venerable seems to have been damaged. His heart immediately fell to the bottom. The four symbols venerable had accompanied him for so long, often saving his life at the most critical moment of his life. His invulnerable, indestructible image had long been firmly fixed in Tang Zheng's heart. However, after being attacked by the missile this time, although there was no damage on the surface, there was definitely something wrong with it. He was actually unable to stand up normally. He was angry and distressed. Damn the missile, its power was actually so strong. Moreover, he did not even know where the missile was fired from. All in all, this is a heavy loss. The four symbols venerable can't move, so I can only rely on my own two legs to charge out. He gritted his teeth, and with a thought, he walked out of the four symbols venerable's body with the Sky Emperor in his hand. The four symbols venerable disappeared and was once again returned to his Sumeru pouch. Everyone subconsciously stopped their attacks and looked at Tang Zheng and the Sky Emperor in a daze. Immediately after, thunderous cheers rang out, and the excitement on their faces became even stronger. Tang Zheng's face was ashen, with the Sky Emperor in one hand and the War Soul Sword in the other. He rushed forward with a majestic gait. The crowd immediately burst into an uproar. Each and every one of them excitedly waved their weapons and attacked Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng did not reject them, and continuously waved the War Soul Sword, displaying the essence of the wind-chasing sword technique once again. The exquisite sword moves knocked down the enemy again and again, and he actually relied on his own strength to push forward a few meters. A bunch of good-for-nothings. Li Xiaotian said in disappointment, so many people can't even stop him. Even though she said that, she did not dare to step forward. Instead, she hid far away. She was very clear that at this moment, Tang Zheng hated her to the bone. If she rushed forward, Tang Zheng would definitely attack her without caring about anything and kill her. With her intelligence, how could she voluntarily send herself to the door to become a ghost under the sword? Although he is a good-for-nothing, after all, there are many people. We can exhaust him to death by taking turns. Haha, ants swallowing an elephant, this scenery is really good. Li Xiaotian raised her eyebrows, showing her seductive manner. The corners of her mouth raised a trace of arc, and she muttered to herself. Tang Zheng's footsteps became slower and slower, and the threats from all directions became more and more numerous. Even though he had great abilities facing such a sea of people, he was powerless. Fortunately, he was using the wind-chasing sword technique, so the consumption of his innate chi was slow. Moreover, he had the Sky Emperor as a human shield in his hand, who could occasionally block a few attacks for him, causing the enemy to be wary of attacking him. Looking from afar, reinforcements continued to pour in from all directions. Furthermore, the rumbling sound of propellers could be heard from the horizon. The helicopter had arrived. With the combined attack of the air and land he would be even more passive. Could it be that this is my Waterloo? Am I going to die in a foreign land? He laughed at himself. His gaze turned and looked at the Sky Emperor in his hand. He had already awakened, but he was like a marionette. As Tang Zheng's arm moved, he did not have any of the majesty and demeanor of the Sky Emperor. He was in an extremely sorry state. Humph, even if I die, I will drag you down with me, Tang Zheng said hatefully. When the Sky Emperor heard those words, his face became even paler as he said, "Let me go and I will spare your life. Right now you are a captive. You should be begging me to spare your life. However, you are the Sky Emperor of an island nation. If I die, having you accompany me in death would not be a waste of my life. I have done a good deed for Wuxia." Tang Zheng laughed maniacally. Chapter 667. Seeing that Tang Zheng was not afraid at all, the Sky Emperor's face turned ashen, knowing that he was doomed. Kill? Tang Zheng mechanically waved his War Soul sword, taking away one life after another, but the number of enemies kept increasing and he could not kill them all. His body was also covered in blood, and blood dripped down his clothes to the ground, leaving behind a long trail of blood. Suddenly a flame lit up in the distance. The flame soared into the sky, even covering the scorching sun in the sky. Thick smoke rose into the air and many people turned their heads to look. It's on fire. Quickly put out the fire. The Imperial Palace was an ancient building, most of it was made of bricks and wood, and many of the buildings were connected to each other. As long as one place was on fire, the other places would quickly be affected. Therefore many people turned around and rushed towards the fire to put out the fire. Another place is on fire. Screams rose one after another, and flames rose into the air from different places one after another. Thick smoke billowed, enveloping the Imperial Palace. Arson. The smart people immediately realized this. If it wasn't arson, then there definitely wouldn't be so many places that caught fire one after another. Li Xiaotian frowned, looking at the flames in the sky. He exclaimed, luring the tiger away from the mountain, "Someone came to save him. Marshal, it must be that woman. She is too daring to take such a risk for Tang Zheng. She really doesn't want to live anymore." Her expression changed greatly. She did not expect this. She had schemed for a long time, but in the end she had missed this point. In fact, although she knew that Marshall's cultivation was higher than her own, she was not really afraid of Marshall. Because she knew that many times Marshall's strength did not represent everything, and schemes were often more useful than Marshall's strength. She originally thought that in the depths of the palace, with Marshall's strength, no matter what, he would not be able to stir up any waves, much less give Tang Zheng much help. But she never thought that Marshall would actually use this move. This move could be said to have hit his weak spot. The Kokyo was like the emperor. It was the symbol of the power of the island nation. It was also a belief and perseverance in the hearts of the people. If the Kokyo was burned down, it would definitely cause a strong reaction among the people and shake their beliefs. Emperors could be passed down from generation to generation, but the Kokyo could not be replicated. If it was destroyed by fire, even if it was rebuilt, it would be difficult to rebuild the faith of the people. Li Xiaotian didn't understand this, which was why she miscalculated. With someone going to put out the fire, the pressure on Tang Zheng was greatly reduced. His counterattacks became stronger and stronger, and his advancing speed became faster and faster. The enemy retreated in defeat, and their momentum instantly weakened. His aura immediately surged, and the flames of despair once again ignited in his heart. His eyes lit up as he looked in the direction of the flames. Who set the fire? For a moment he couldn't figure it out. Suddenly, whoosh! A beam of white light shot out from the direction of the fire. Wherever it passed, it immediately turned into a sea of fire. Xiao Bai! Tang Zheng exclaimed. The fire was actually set by Xiao Bai. Yesterday he was still thinking that if he set the Kokyo on fire, it would definitely be very refreshing. He didn't expect that this little fellow would know his thoughts and actually do it. Not good. Suddenly, his brows trembled as he realized another point. Xiao Bai is by Marshall's side. If it came to set the fire, then with Marshall's temper, it would definitely come. Didn't I repeatedly warn you not to let her get involved? I told her to run away as soon as she saw any movement. This foolish woman, she actually rushed in without caring about anything. Sigh. He had 1,000 thoughts running through his mind. For a moment he didn't know whether to criticize Marshall or praise him. The more critical the moment of life and death, the more one could see a person clearly. As the saying goes, a friend in need is a friend indeed. For Marshall to be able to overcome the difficulties and come to save him without hesitation, this already explained everything. Although he wanted to blame him, he couldn't say it out loud. Sure enough, not far behind Xiao Bai, there was a tall and beautiful figure. She was like a phoenix bathed in fire, so bright that no one could look straight at her. Li Xiaotian also saw Marshall. His eyes immediately emitted a cold gaze and shouted, "Stop her!" Someone immediately went forward to intercept Marshall, but Xiao Bai was like a warrior. She opened her small mouth, and monstrous flames spewed out from her small mouth, turning the world in front of her into a sea of fire. The enemy immediately turned into a flaming man, screaming miserably as he rolled on the ground. Marshall quickly passed by these people and came to Tang Zheng's side. Looking at the wounds and blood on Tang Zheng's body, her face became very ugly and she asked with concern, "How are you?" Tang Zheng grinned and revealed a carefree smile and said, "I won't die. Why are you here? If I don't come, what will you do? I can't let you be trapped here alone, but I can't escape," Marshall said resolutely. "Doesn't this mean that both of them are trapped?" "Humph, that's better than being trapped alone," Marshall said disapprovingly. He turned his gaze and saw Li Xiaotian hiding behind the crowd. His gaze turned cold as he said, "Did she betray you?" Tang Zheng also looked at Li Xiaotian and laughed bitterly. "This is all her trap. I trusted her. This is my own fault. I already said that her words can't be trusted. Yeah, I should have listened to you long ago." Marshall was slightly startled. He looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression and said, "It's not too late now. Who is this?" "The Sky Emperor, my captive." Marshall was not frightened by the identity of the Sky Emperor. Instead, he was beaming with joy and said, "It's good that we caught him. The whereabouts of master and mistress are confirmed." Tang Zheng wanted to explain the matter of the imperial advisor to her, but this was not the right time, so he chose to remain silent. Xiao Bai jumped onto Tang Zheng's body, scratched his hair, and bared his teeth as he pointed at the flames in all directions, as if he was asking for credit. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and said, "I know that all of this is thanks to you. Xiao Bai is the strongest." Xiao Bai was like a child being praised by his parents. He was so excited that he danced with joy, looking comical and cute. The flames around them were gradually extinguished, and the enemy surrounded them once again. "Marshall, take him with you. I'll deal with these people," Tang Zheng said. Marshall did not argue and took over the Sky Emperor. Tang Zheng took the lead and stood proudly. The War Soul sword in his hand disappeared and was replaced by the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows. When Li Xiaotian saw the two weapons, his eyes immediately blossomed with a blazing light. His palms itched, and he wished that he could immediately rush up and take the two divine weapons for himself. But she knew that the moment Tang Zheng pulled open the heaven-shocking bow, its attack power was even more terrifying than the War Soul sword. Thus, she decisively floated backwards without the slightest hesitation. This was Li Xiaotian. He judged the situation, made a prompt decision, and did not hesitate. His temperament had been cultivated to the point where he was almost emotionless. This was the outstanding trait of the Holy Maiden of Li Palace. This was the trait that the person who had experienced countless eliminations and finally sat on the Holy Maiden's throne should have. However, the other island nation people did not have Li Xiaotian's trait. Seeing that the flames were extinguished, they crazily launched another attack. Tang Zheng gently released his fingers, the bowstring trembled, and the shooting sun arrow turned into a ray of light and shot out. To Tang Zheng, the sharp sound of something tearing through the air was like heavenly music from the 9 heavens. He could hear it to the extreme, but to the enemy it was a death sentence. Wherever the shooting sun arrow passed, the air would tremble, and the people of the island nation would be unable to move, as they were enveloped by the powerful aura of the shooting sun arrow. Boom, boom, boom. The shooting sun arrow pierced through the chest of the first island nation person, then the second, the third, the fourth. The shooting sun arrow continued forward as if there was no end to it. A series of island nation people fell to the ground. Seeing that, the others subconsciously retreated in fear. What kind of arrow was this? How could it be so terrifying? For an ordinary archer, it was already very powerful for an arrow to pierce through 2 people. However, this arrow seemed to have no time to exhaust its strength. It was unheard of, unseen, and too terrifying. "Let's go." Tang Zheng took advantage of the enemy's distraction and whispered, then took the lead and rushed out. With the shooting sun arrow paving this bloody path, it could be said to be unstoppable and unobstructed. No one could stop them. In an instant they arrived at the last door of the imperial palace. After passing through this door, they would be able to disappear into the bustling streets. Even if the enemy wanted to chase after them, it would be extremely difficult. Hold on, it's the last step. Tang Jing encouraged. Wu nodded heavily, his eyes resolute. The Sky Emperor was truly in despair. He lived in the depths of the palace and never thought that he would be kidnapped. This was something that had never happened in thousands of years. This was a huge humiliation to the royal family. If it happened to him, he would probably have to commit suicide and use his death to apologize to his ancestors and citizens. The enemy finally knew that this was the last barrier. Although they were intimidated by the terrifying power of the shooting sun arrow, they still chased after them like a tide. Tang Jing had already picked up the shooting sun arrow and placed it back on the heaven-shocking bow. The tip of the arrow was aimed in one direction, and the people there would subconsciously scatter to the sides like a tide. It was obvious that even though they were determined to die, they would still feel an instinctive fear and tremble in the face of such a divine weapon. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Seeing that there was still a group of people at the entrance who were unafraid of death, Tang Jing did not hesitate anymore, and the shooting sun arrow left the bow once again. Boom. After killing everyone, the shooting sun arrow struck the door. The thick and heavy pure wood door exploded into a pile of dust. The door had already disappeared without a trace, and the road ahead was unobstructed. Let's go. Tang Jing and the others immediately rushed out of the door. In front of them was a bustling street filled with traffic. Many people had already stopped to look at the imperial palace, not knowing what had happened. When they saw Tang Jing and the others rushing out, they all covered their mouths and cried out in alarm. These were all ordinary people and were no longer a threat to Tang Jing. Naturally, he would not kill any more people, and was prepared to turn into the street beside him and disappear without a trace. But the heavens did not go as he wished. Chapter 668. F***CK, do you think that I can't do anything to you just because you're flying in the sky? Tang Jing spat out a mouthful of saliva and pulled back his bow, aiming at the shooting sun arrow. The people on the helicopter obviously didn't think that the arrows would be a threat to them and ignored them. The flames from the machine gun became even more intense, causing a cloud of dust to rise from the ground. Tang Jing didn't panic in the face of danger. Like a god, he wasn't affected by the series of bullets at all. Instead, his hands became even steadier. The shooting sun arrow left the bow, its speed faster than a bullet. In the blink of an eye, it rose into the air and accurately hit the fuel tank of the helicopter. Boom. With a huge explosion, the helicopter turned into a ball of flames. Little White kicked off Tang Jing's shoulder like an arrow that shot into the sky. Not long after, it landed on Tang Jing's shoulder. In the end, there was an additional shooting sun arrow. Tang Jing patted its little head and praised, "Xiao Bai is so smart. We can't stay here for long, let's go." Seeing that the biggest threat had been eliminated, Marshall heaved a sigh of relief and urged, "Let's go." The two of them escorted the emperor and quickly turned into a nearby street, blending into the crowd and disappearing without a trace. The Kokyo was in chaos. Li Xiaotian stomped his feet in hatred. His perfect plan had gone down the drain. The next time he wanted to deal with Tang Jing, it would be even more difficult. "Marshal, this woman is really dead set on Tang Jing. She doesn't even want her own life. Moreover, he has people like Wu Junshan behind him. He will only become stronger in the future." Li Xiaotian shook his head. He felt that his future was not good. Making an enemy out of Tang Jing seemed to be a huge mistake. So what if it's a mistake? He is a cultivator, and cultivators are the natural enemies of martial artists. This is what the palace master taught me since I was young. How can I be like Marshall, going back on my words and going against my original oath and decision to mix with cultivators? Li Xiaotian's eyes were firm, not wavering in the slightest. No one would have thought that the one who hated cultivators the most would be the Li Palace, and not the martial organization that seemed to be incompatible with cultivators on the surface. This was one in the light and one in the dark. The layout was deep and far-sighted, causing others to be unable to fathom it. Asgard Mistress ordered me to come to the island. She only said that there was a very important matter. Could it be the matter of the martial monarch mountain that Tang Jing mentioned? Li Xiaotian muttered to himself, resisting the urge to call the Asgard Mistress. Since the palace master didn't want to tell her, there must be a reason for it. She wasn't stupid enough to ask. This was also why she was so surprised when she heard Wu Junshan mention Wu Junshan and the others. It was because she truly did not know about this matter. After Wu Junshan and the others left the martial sect, their whereabouts were very strange. Li Xiaotian was also curious and wanted to investigate, but there was very little information in this area. She wanted to do it, but she was powerless. But now, from the little clues, she gradually made her own judgment. Thinking of Wu Junshan, the dispirited look in her eyes gradually disappeared. Her eyes became bright, and her heart couldn't help but beat faster. Wu Junshan, if I really find him or even catch him, it will definitely be a rich and colorful stroke in my life. In the Jianghu, the Li Palace's position will rise to another level, completely surpassing the martial organization, and even comparable to the mysterious Azure Dragon Hall. This thought made her palpitate with excitement. Not only would this benefit the Li Palace, it would also benefit her. Although she was the holy maiden of the Li Palace, and the future successor of the Li Palace master, she was still young. Without enough achievements and qualifications, even if she inherited the position of palace master in the future, it would be difficult to convince the masses. Without a doubt, the merit of capturing Wu Junshan would solve all her problems and shut the mouths of others. You are the holy maiden of the Li Palace, Li Xiaodan? Suddenly a voice broke her reverie. She unhappily raised her head and frowned at the person who came. This was a woman. To be exact, it was a beautiful woman, a woman who didn't lose to her. This wasn't just referring to appearance and temperament, but more importantly, strength. For a woman of similar age to her to have such strength, she could be said to be a dragon among men. Who are you? Li Xiaotian smiled, the displeasure and hostility in her heart quickly disappearing without a trace, replaced by a bewitching smile. The person who came was as stiff as a statue, rigidly saying, "The Imperial Tutor invites you." She didn't answer Li Xiaotian's question, but the two words Imperial Tutor completely attracted Li Xiaotian's attention, causing her to temporarily ignore this question. You are from the Imperial Tutor's residence? Li Xiaotian asked in surprise. The Imperial Tutor's residence was one of the most mysterious places in the island nation. Its degree of mystery far surpassed that of the Imperial Palace. In fact, the Imperial Palace was not mysterious to the masses, it was in the eyes of the masses. Even if outsiders couldn't enter the depths of the palace, it had been there for thousands of years, and the masses had accumulated a lot of understanding of it. On the other hand, the Imperial Tutor's residence was a name that the masses had never heard of, just like the three great organizations of Wuxia, which the average person had never heard of. The Imperial Tutor's residence was as mysterious as the Azure Dragon Palace. Everyone had only heard of its name, and no one had ever mentioned to outsiders what kind of existence it was. Those who could enter and leave the Imperial Tutor's residence were all tight-lipped, and there was even a saying that disaster came from the mouth. The Li Palace's intelligence network was spread all over the world, but even they knew a little about the Imperial Tutor's residence. But one thing was certain, the Imperial Tutor's residence was the Imperial Tutor's residence, the place where he trained his disciples and subordinates. It was one of the most dangerous places in the island nation, far more dangerous than the Imperial Palace. Since the Imperial Tutor invited her, Li Xiaotian naturally wouldn't refuse, and was even somewhat excited. She could finally touch upon this place that others couldn't understand. Of course, as the fearless holy maiden of the Li Palace, even though the Imperial Tutor's residence was very mysterious and the Imperial Tutor was very powerful, she still wouldn't feel any fear. Hearing Li Xiaotian's question, the person meticulously replied, "Yes." Li Xiaotian curled her lips and said, "Do you only know these few words?" The person acted as if she hadn't heard and turned to leave. "She has even more of a temper than I do." Li Xiaotian helplessly rolled her eyes, and then confidently followed. Before leaving the Imperial Palace, she couldn't help but turn her head to take a look. The Imperial Palace was still burning, but much of it had been extinguished. But under the thick smoke, the Imperial Palace was in a mess, almost completely destroyed. This ancient building that had stood for thousands of years had been destroyed in a single day by Tang Zheng. What a troublemaker. First the warship, then the Imperial Palace. He really wants to turn this country upside down. The people of the island nation are probably on the verge of crying. Although she said this, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl into a smile. It was obvious that in the depths of her heart, she really didn't have a good impression of this country. On this point she didn't lie to Tang Zheng. Li Xiaotian was proud by nature, and this pride was also expressed in her attitude towards this small country. Although the island nation had no lack of experts, She believed from the bottom of her heart that the island nation was far inferior to Wuxia. Li Xiaotian wasn't wrong. The people of the island nation were indeed on the verge of crying. The Li Palace was a kind of belief in their hearts. With the Li Palace destroyed, their belief was on the verge of collapse. This kind of despair and grief was unimaginable. The whole country fell into deep pain, as if they had experienced a national disaster. The people walked onto the streets and gathered at the imperial palace, wanting to see what had become of the imperial palace. When they saw the mess of the imperial palace, many people knelt in front of the imperial palace and cried bitterly. They were sadder than if their parents had died. The internet was immediately filled with pictures of the imperial palace's current situation, which were transmitted to every corner of the world. The island nation had already announced to the outside world that this was a kind of crazy terrorist attack. The island nation would definitely carry out a fatal revenge attack against the initiator of this. The governments of various countries spoke out one after another to condemn this kind of terrorist act, but the people of many countries were secretly happy. 100 years ago, the island nation's invasion of the outside world had indeed attracted too much hatred for their own country. Some of their actions had even deviated from the values of the general public, such as the crazy actions of hunting whales every year. This time the island nation had really lost face, and it had been completely disgraced. The people of the world saw it as a big joke. The people of the island nation marched on the streets, condemning the government's inaction. They wanted the people in power to step down, and they even apologized with death. The whole country gradually fell into chaos. However, all of this didn't end because, whether it was intentional or not, the government concealed the news of the emperor's abduction. The ordinary people only knew that the imperial palace had been destroyed. The government's plan was clear in the eyes of all the observant people. If the public knew that the emperor had been captured, it would cause even more turmoil and chaos. This was one of the things that the island nation government was most afraid of. The island nation government's wishful thinking was very good, but there was no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. A few days after the incident, the news of the emperor being abducted gradually appeared on the internet, and there was no trace of him. In the beginning, not many people believed this news. They thought that some people with ulterior motives wanted to stir up trouble and take advantage of the situation. However, to the public's surprise, the news quickly spread like wildfire. Not only on the internet but also in real life. Moreover, the details of the incident were described in great detail, as if they had personally experienced it. If the other party was making it up, it definitely wouldn't be so realistic. Therefore all of this could be true. This really caused an uproar. The people of the island nation went crazy. They rushed onto the streets and attacked the government. They wanted the government to give them an explanation, or let the emperor appear to give them an explanation. Then this rumor would naturally collapse and disappear without a trace. However, things didn't develop as the people expected. Instead, it developed in a direction that they were very afraid of. The government dragged it out again and again, only comforting them. However, the emperor still didn't appear, causing the people to panic more and more. Gradually, everyone believed this matter. The emperor was really captured. This time, not only the island nation, but the whole world once again paid attention to this. This was the ruler of a country, the leader of a country, being captured in his own palace. This was simply a great humiliation. National disaster. This was a real national disaster. The people of the island nation didn't feel like their parents had died. Instead, it felt like their entire family had died. Many people had completely collapsed. They sat outside the ruins of the imperial palace all day long, like walking corpses. Chapter 669. The instigators of all of this, Tang Zheng and Marshall, seemed to have disappeared without a trace. The island nation used all of its resources to find the three of them, but found that it was all in vain. The bustling Tokyo was a tourist paradise. Every year, it would receive a large number of tourists from all over the world. Due to historical reasons, the people of the Western Empire enjoyed treatment that citizens of other countries could not compare to in the island nation. At the entrance of a 5-star luxurious hotel, a Westerner swaggered into the hotel. The doorman respectfully greeted him. This was already a regular customer. He had been staying in the hotel for the past few days. Even the doorman remembered this face. The Westerner arrogantly nodded as if he did not see the doorman's greeting. The doorman kept smiling as he watched the Westerner walk into the hotel. The Westerner sat in the electric hall and arrived at the luxurious suite on the upper floor. After the door opened, a face appeared behind the door. It was a Chinese face. If Li Xiaotian was here, he would definitely be unable to help but exclaim a name: Marshal. The person at the door was the marshal that the island nation had racked their brains to find. It was as if Marshal had disappeared from the face of the earth. She actually swaggered into the most prosperous five-star hotel in Tokyo. No one would have thought that she would be so bold, and no one would have expected that she would be able to escape layers upon layers of searches and surveillance. Of course, more people would be curious, how did she do it? Who was this Westerner? The Westerner asked, how is he? It was actually Wuxia language and it was very pure. Marshal nodded and said, just now he was a little restless and wanted to escape. After I took care of him, he became obedient again. The Westerner sneered and said, he has already escaped so many times, but he still hasn't given up. After all, he is the emperor. His temperament is far more resolute than ordinary people. Marshal said, fine, then let him escape. He will eventually despair. The Westerner shrugged indifferently and said, how is it outside? Marshal asked. The Westerner chuckled, it's getting more and more chaotic outside. I really didn't expect that this time I would accidentally cause such a big mess. It's enough for the people of the island nation to drink a pot. Wu said meaningfully, it's not just a pot. I saw the reports on TV. This country is almost in chaos. This is just a facade. The island nation is not damaged at all. Given time, they will rise again. It's just like when they were bombed by the Western Empire's atomic bomb. The whole country mourned, but it didn't take them many years to rise again, even faster than the Wuxia. There are many qualities in this nation that are worth learning and thinking about. The Westerner shook his head and sighed. After a short pause, he sighed. Wuxia has a deep foundation and too many unique advantages. But because of this, they are often not good at cherishing and reflecting. So, in fact, there are many aspects of the island nation that we can learn from. Wu was obviously not interested in this question and changed the topic. What should we do next? We can't stay in the hotel forever, right? Of course not. The Westerner said mysteriously, during this period of time, I have been quietly observing the changes. Although the island nation is in chaos, our goal is to save your master and the others. So, the key is to find their whereabouts. According to the emperor, only the imperial advisor knows the whole story. But the result of my inquiries over the past few days is that there is no such person. Ordinary people don't even know of his existence. Wu was not surprised and said, in Wuxia, ordinary people are not aware of the existence of the three major organizations. This situation is similar in every country. The Westerner nodded and continued, the emperor is unwilling to speak. We also don't know where the imperial advisor is. So all of this has temporarily reached a dead end. Don't you know the soul search technique? If we used the soul searching technique on him once, wouldn't everything be solved? Wu suggested. The Westerner shook his head and smiled bitterly. He is still useful to me. This method won't work for the time being. We can only think of another plan. After saying that, he lowered his head and pondered. Wu was helpless and silently walked away. He walked into a room and saw a person lying on the bed. He did not move at all, but his eyes kept rolling around. No one knew what he was thinking. This person was the emperor who had been abducted. Your acupuncture points have been sealed by me. Don't even think about escaping. Wu sat on a chair at the door and said coldly, got it? Suddenly, the Westerner cried out in surprise and shot up from his chair with a whoosh. He stared straight at him and asked, what can we do? National Security Bureau. The Westerner snapped his fingers and said, National Security Bureau? Wu repeated curiously, what can the Dragon Group do to help? Don't you remember the island nation's royal family that I caught in the Changbai Mountains? He is the emperor's younger brother and was later handed over to the National Security Bureau, Suing Tian. The National Security Bureau's understanding of the island nation is not just a year or so. They definitely have a lot of information that I don't know. Perhaps the imperial advisor is one of them. Wu rolled his eyes and thought that it was feasible. He said, you are from the National Security Bureau, so you can try this method. But let me tell you, the emperor must not be handed over to the National Security Bureau. So, this Westerner was actually Tang Zheng. He deliberately used an illusion technique to transform himself into a Westerner and swaggered into the hotel. No one would have thought that he had such a trick up his sleeve. He was right under the noses of the Japanese. He was truly a black sheep under the lamp. Haha, even if I hand it over to them they wouldn't dare to accept it. This is a hot potato. If the National Security Bureau were to accept it, it would be an act of the country. It would lead to international disputes and war. Tang Jing laughed loudly. Only then did Wu relax. The emperor was related to the safety of her master and the others. Even if it was a country she would not easily give it up. Tang Jing took out a satellite phone from his summer bag and dialed Su Yingtian's number. After a few rings, Su Yingtian's familiar voice rang out. Who is it? Me. Tang Jing said a simple word. Su Yingtian immediately recognized his voice and said in surprise, Haha, so it's you, brat. You slipped away again. Didn't I ask you to take care of Princess Anne? I told you to protect her safety, so why did you run away without saying a word? You didn't even say a word. Could it be that Princess Anne is really that terrifying that you want to avoid her? Speaking of this mission, Su Yingtian was really depressed. Other people would fight to the death for this mission, but this brat wanted to hide far away. It was too abnormal. This made him, an old man in his 40s, unable to figure out what Tang Jing was thinking. How much danger can she be in the country? Moreover, with your secret protection nothing will happen. Tang Jing explained. Su Yingtian chuckled and said, Speaking of chaos, the island nation has been really exciting recently. You know that there's a big mess, right? Island nation has done so many bad things to me, Wuxia. A while ago they even sent people to assassinate Princess Anne and frame our country. I don't know which fierce person it is, but if I meet him, I will definitely treat him to a few drinks and properly thank him. He didn't expect Su Yingtian to take the initiative to change the topic. Tang Jing said embarrassedly, I came to find you today for this matter. For this matter? Wait a minute, Tang Jing, where are you now? Su Yingtian reacted as if he had realized something and asked nervously. I'm in the island nation. F***ck. Su Yingtian couldn't help but curse. His breathing also couldn't help but quicken as he asked, Don't tell me that fierce person is you? Tang Jing said embarrassedly, You guessed right. Silence. Su Yingtian was completely silent. Only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard from the phone. Su Yingtian knew that Tang Jing's courage was big and his ability was not small, but he never would have thought that he would dare to single-handedly break into a country, destroy the imperial palace that had been passed down for thousands of years, and even kidnap the ruler of a country. There wasn't such a fierce person in the movies. Before Su Yingtian could react, Tang Jing dryly coughed and reminded him, You are the director of the National Security Bureau. What kind of battle have you not seen? Why do you look like you haven't seen the world? **ck. Su Yingtian cursed again and said angrily, Do you think that the director of the National Security Bureau is omnipotent? As far as I know, there is an upper limit to the strength of the people I know, but you seem to have no upper limit. Every time you dare to do something shocking. Do you think that everyone's hearts are too strong so you're deliberately testing everyone? Su Yingtian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He really was someone who had seen great battles, but he couldn't withstand Tang Jing's frightening torment. Su Yingtian took a few deep breaths, suppressed the shock in his heart and asked curiously, How did the island nation provoke you this time? Why are you so fierce? This is a secret for now, but I can tell you one more thing. The sinking of the warship a while ago was also caused by me. Tang Jing simply told him everything at once. Su Yingtian's gasp could be heard from the phone. My heart can't take it. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You really want to scare me to death. Su Yingtian patted his chest and said with lingering fear, Do you know how serious the warship incident was a while ago? The island nation was certain that our Wuxia was the one who did it. After all, the two countries are old enemies. Because of this, the two countries went to war. I didn't think that they wouldn't blame us. This was really done by our people. If the other side knew that you were from the National Security Bureau, then I'm afraid it would really cause a war between the two countries. Su Yingtian rubbed his eyebrows. In the past he was very lucky to have recruited Tang Jing, but now it seemed that this might not be a lucky thing. He was simply a ticking time bomb. He didn't know when it would explode, but it would implicate the National Security Bureau and even the entire country. Of course, this was only the worst-case scenario. Su Yingtian and Tang Jing's relationship was already unusual, so he wouldn't burn the bridge after crossing it. Su Yingtian really had a headache. After a while, he said, Is the Emperor still in your hands? Of course he's next door. Just now he tried his best to escape but we stopped him. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.